Commissioners meeting will come to order. Let the record show that today is October the 31st, 2019. The time is 9 o'clock a.m. I wonder, Mr. Wilson Jarvis, if you would do the honor in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir.
I will, sir.
Thank you.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Well, for all the national fans, congratulations.
Oh, yes.
That's a historic game.
That was amazing. I mean, the road team wins
Every game, yeah. Pretty wild. Madam Clerk to the Board, would you conduct a roll call, please?
Commissioner Flower.
Present.
Commissioner Kanda.
Here.
Commissioner Prince.
Here.
Attorney Clint Smith.
Present.
And Clerk to the Board, Kelly Campbell, present.
Well, thank you.
That social butterfly over there.
I love it.
Audience introductions, would you start, sir?
Wilson Jarvis, rural Custer County.
Charles Bogle, rural Custer County. Gary Taylor, Silver Cliff.
Thank you. Welcome. Good to have you. Amendments to the agenda.
I don't have any.
Okay.
I'd like to make a suggestion, if I may, sir.
Go ahead.
We have a workshop later today on broadband. We also have discussion of broadband on the agenda. I'm wondering if it would make more sense to postpone the discussion on broadband until after the workshop.
I have a question to ask during that
I think
time.
Bill was going to bring up something during that agenda
It's
item.
not related
No
to
problem.
the
I
workshop.
didn't realize
Yeah.
it was something different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have nothing else.
I would move to delete consideration of authorizing KTLF on Lookout Mountain from the agenda. He is not able to make it from the Springs today.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to delete the item concerning authorizing KTLF to transmit off of Lookout Mountain. It's not debatable. We'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed nay. Motion carries. We'll strike that. Anything else on the agenda?
No, sir.
We'll move on. Approval of the minutes, October the 23rd.
I'll move that we approve the minutes for October 23rd as presented.
Thank you. Then I'll second the motion. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of October the 23rd, meeting held in Wetmore. I thought the meeting, or discussion, sorry.
Minutes look good to me.
Yeah, I thought
Good to me too. I didn't catch any.
which is all we do, right, is try to catch,
Make the record correct.
Yep.
because I just think it's interesting reading. Further discussion?
He goes to bed.
Hearing none.
Yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed nay. Motion carries. Minutes of October 23rd have been approved. Commissioner items. Commissioner Prince, would you like to begin?
Sure. Yesterday I attended the Upper Arkansas Area Council of Governments meeting. It was supposed to be in by Univista, which meant a long ride, but thank goodness for the weather. We did it by phone. So we did the call-in phone conferencing. Still lasted 3 hours, but these meetings just last forever. It was excellent, and they're looking for a new director. Judy Lohans is retiring.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Didn't know that.
yeah, I think it's the end of January. So I'm on the committee to help select a replacement. I met with Lisa Drew, the director of the clinic, yesterday. Just she and I met in her office to discuss the future of the ambulance. I also have a meeting with my advisors, and that's what I'm calling them, on November 4th here to talk about how do we want to proceed with the ambulance from our point of view. And that's at 10 o'clock if you want to. 10 o'clock here, the room's reserved.
Say that again, Jim.
You have it on the
I have it on the calendar, yes.
What was it?
It's an ambulance meeting, just 3 or 4 people that
That's just
are
your
kind of
gig.
my advisors, is the way I want to put it. I don't want to call it a committee because I feel that, and I may take a little heat from this right now, but I feel that I'm the point of contact for the BOCC at this point with the ambulance. If I call it a committee and I'm not allowed to be on the committee, I am no longer then the point of contact. So I would like to call the folks my advisors, because ultimately it's going to come back to the 3 of us to decide where we want to go.
Well, we originally set up county group. There was a
Is this the whole bunch?
emergency
Or?
services group, and then you guys got together as a combined group.
That's
You're
correct.
taking the county group, and you
That's
guys
correct.
are discussing options.
We have met as a combined group several times.
Yep.
I asked and I'm calling it my advisors as opposed to my committee, because I don't want to be.
But it's the county advisors.
Correct.
Call them your posse.
My homies.
The ambulance
Okay.
posse.
My homies, to discuss how do we really would like to see from the county point of view how this should evolve, and then we'll meet back with the entire group again. They're meeting on their own also. In fact, there is a group separate and distinct from the clinic itself that is an ambulance group, of which I hope to become a member of today, to try and figure out what's the long term, how we can handle this long term. So that's coming up on the 4th, and it'll be 10 o'clock here, and of course it's open to anybody who'd like to come.
The 4th of November.
Right.
What time?
4th November, Monday, this
time?
coming Monday at 10 o'clock right here in this room. Let's see what else. I had multiple discussions with the tourism, just kind of working through some of the details on some of the projects they have coming and going. More, they just keep me up to speed on what's going on in between their regular meetings. Other than that, it's just been a week or so, and I haven't done that much more. But I would like to comment. I got several comments from people about snow plowing, and all of them were extremely positive. So I just want to pass on to Gary that the majority of the people I spoke to said they were up early, working hard, the roads look good, and they appreciate it, and I want to pass that compliment
Great.
on.
I'll tell him.
Thank you. And that's all I have,
All
sir.
right, Commissioner Kenda.
Did we have something, the underfunded court meeting on the 21st? Is that when it is? Of November?
Yes.
I just want to make sure I got it right. In the thing. Okay. Yeah, a couple things real quick. Since the last meeting, we had the airport board meeting out at the airport, and that was the first storm of, I think it was 3. I can't remember. I've lost count. And that was good. We did discuss the broken apron on the barn. Fire department, I mentioned last time, Kit got out there, looked at it, owned up to it, said it definitely was caused by that truck's too heavy for how that was designed. It needs to be done. So they dug it up, checked it out.
They did dig it up?
No, I'm sorry, they looked at it, and it needs to be dug up, and he got bids on it, and they're $5,000. And so I've decided to ask the board if they'd consider talking to Don and let's see if it's worth turning into the insurance. I don't know if it's big enough, but I think we should, if we can save a
Talk
buck.
to
Donna Hobby.
this board or?
No, the airport board.
Oh,
And asked him to consider doing that and getting bids on it, because and then we'll decide how between us and the fire department's responsible for it. And they agree, but they want us to do everything we can to keep the cost down. So it's county property. It's worth turning in and taking a look at it. I think I'll talk to Donna and see what the options are. Get Lynn in touch with her.
yeah, it's, if I may.
Yeah.
Damage caused by a non-county entity, should we be turning that into our insurance company? They should be turning it into their insurance company, I would
It's the
think.
same insurance company, isn't it? County building, isn't it?
No.
That fire department.
The fire
I know it's the fire district.
No,
The district has
they
their
have
own.
their own.
They have their own.
Well, yeah, and that's
They're not part of the county.
And I agree. I mean,
yeah,
you know, when
that's
it
what I
was all
thought.
volunteer,
Yeah,
I feel
you're
totally
right.
different.
You're absolutely right.
But since they have, they're a district of their own,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, you're right.
Get a
District,
mail.
you're absolutely right. And I just was thinking out loud and
No problem.
when I was talking with him. It does need to be turned into an insurance company.
Completely agree.
And I can't believe
Fixed.
that they want $5,000 to do that. But that's, they need to get some bids on it. That's a lot of money for not a lot of concrete. So that was one of the discussions we had. Also finishing getting the, couldn't do it lately because of the snow, finished rolling out the hay that's out the end of the runway. And they did have a prop strike on a deer out there right before that. They tried to buzz them off and the deer crossed. And
An airplane?
the airplane chopped the deer in half.
Did the airplane, was anybody injured?
No, it's just a taxi thing. Deer just, I had one commit suicide on my car the other day.
A local pilot or?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about that.
So it was, I like to say minimal damage. The trouble is anytime you get a prop strike, it involves a lot of inspection. It's a problem. So they worked that. The hangars are all rented up, and they're looking at what we can do to get that fill dirt in there. I'm going to talk to Gary and see if we can get on off times. There's that hill behind between the road and the hangars. It has a lot of dirt on it where they're going to be putting a taxiway and that kind of thing. No reason why we couldn't get a loader out there and put the dirt from there to the other side. That's something they'll discuss and bring to us at some point. The upper arc, Terry Skanga has been gone until now. I've got to get a hold of him to find out when the next Blue Line Committee meeting is. We want to push that, given the circumstances that are changing all the time. I haven't heard back from him.
Question on it before you
Yeah.
Are they still amenable to adjusting the blue line and modifying it based on what our ranchers and farmers have recommended?
Yeah, that's what they put under. That's why we want to get with them sooner than later.
Good. Well, I commend them
Good couple
for
of
looking to do
suggestions they had. It was excellent choice. I mean, a good program that both Randy Rusk and Robert Miller had discussed. It was good. Council of Governments, speaking of that, did sit in on a broadband strategic meeting. It's the one that the strategic plan. What's it called, Charles? It's the plan
It's an update to our existing strategic plan.
that the Council of Governments has already commissioned.
Yeah, they had,
I can't remember the guy's name. Pat, is that the first name? The consultant that they hired.
yeah, he was the one that did our original plan.
Right.
It was done under a DOLA contract.
Right. And so they came and interviewed all the county officials several weeks ago and other people that had a dog in the fight. And he wrote a draft. He's got the second, or is it the third draft out, and for review. And there's a meeting on Friday, which I'm a little confused about that because we've agreed to allow the plan with a review to take place beyond the first. And I haven't heard back. Did she get him to agree
There
that?
was a message late yesterday afternoon that Paul is the guy's
Oh, that's it.
agreed with the idea of having supplemental county letters to supplement the plan.
Right.
So we'll basically review tomorrow at 9 o'clock with steering committee the basic document, and then at 1 o'clock. It's a
1:30.
public meeting. It also can be done by phone.
Charles sent a copy to each of us of that flyer for that meeting in Salida, right? For Friday. It can be done on the phone. I'll sit in on the phone most likely.
But and I know Dale and I are planning on going to Slida in the morning.
Okay.
But
So what the bottom line there is, the strategic plan is based upon all counties' internal broadband concepts and desires, and it's rolled up all those. And Charles had some good input that we need to get back in there because we've done a lot of updates since they first started that with a lot of things we're doing here. And he sent those to all of us as well. So we'll see how that plays out. We are not held hostage to any county wanting to do something that would cause us to go and be part of it, to raise taxes, to go do something, because it's all dovetailed together. All right. The Booster Club had a tailgate party Saturday and sold over 350 not sold, gave away 350 hamburgers and lunches, and had a great time, and must have worked because for the first time in a few years, Custer County High School won the homecoming game, and it's handily. I mean, we looked good, and it was a great time too. We got the reason I bring it up because we're going to be playing in the snow tomorrow or Saturday at 1 o'clock. So come. Also attended the sheriff's armor fundraiser. Wow, that place was full. Did you go?
I gave a donation
Yeah.
when they were making.
Over $10,000 was raised, almost 13, I think they said something like that. Amazing amount of money, and won an empty chair, lots of people, and not time to talk to anybody. So I thought that went well. And then finally, CenturyLink is supposed to wrap up the end of this month today. That was their goal, but the snow stopped a lot of things. I've gotten a lot of complaints about how they're cleaning up and grooming what mess they made. So I got to talk to Tim. I got a call into him, and we're going to find out what his plan is. We may have to wait till the ground's thawed out. Who knows what they'll do? Because there's a lot of people are seeing the boulders they turned up and a lot of things. And then they've strung some lines. I got to talk to them about a couple lines that they hung over a couple roads that they could have bored under, but we'll see what they do about that, if anything. Any questions? That's all I got right now.
Good.
Well, I do, and then we'll talk about the other thing. All right.
Not a lot to report. I had attended a non-county conference in Denver this last week, so took up some time there. I did want to talk about the upcoming underfunded court commission meeting on the 21st. Custer County has made the application for a grant to that. I spoke to Shannon Byerly, our sheriff, yesterday. He indicated he would be willing to be the spokesman if we needed him to be. So I didn't know. I told him I would bring it up today and we could have a little discussion about that.
It's on the agenda.
So yeah, we can have that discussion later on, but I just wanted to let you know that we'd be thinking about that as well. So really, I don't have a whole lot else to report. Like you say, it's basically been a week or so. So, okay, good. Anything else, gentlemen? Move on. I don't have anything. I did speak with one of the directors yesterday, Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District, and asked him how the meeting went. I was unable to go, and he said it was fairly uneventful, kind of business as usual. So I don't have really a lot to report there either. Attorney items?
Kit Shy, as the fire chief for the Wet Mountain Fire Protection District, had agreed to take on the responsibility of revising the burn ordinance, especially the part about issuing the permits and everything. And he had a draft. He sent it out to me and to others, and it was one of those he sent by email with the edit and reply feature, and I spent 3 hours making all my changes, and then with my Neanderthal computer skills promptly lost it. So I did it the old-fashioned.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I printed it out and went through and just did it in red ink instead. And did he come in and pick that up yet, Karen?
He's not.
Okay. I just gave it. I told Kit that she would have it. So, but I think that's pretty close to going. I don't know if it's something they want to get done yet this year. I don't think we're going to have any more fires with all this snow now, but just in case it dries out again.
Yeah.
By the way, is the Decker fire completely
Yes.
under control now?
Yes, it's totally out.
Went out.
Really? Okay, very
It
good.
was announced in my meeting yesterday.
I helped Jackie Hobby with a few of her letters to the septic scofflaws in the county, the ones that build sheds and want to live in the sheds and don't want to put in the septic system. She writes the letters, I go through and tweak them a little bit, and so I did that. And the only other thing, and this isn't really county work, but yesterday I attended, or was it, no, Tuesday, the Bluff Park meeting that San Isabel Land Protection Trust put on for input from the community on what people would like to see as far as improving Bluff Park. It wasn't a big turnout because of the weather, but there were some interesting ideas, and I mean, just if they could pull off some of that, the roundabout there at the end of Main Street, and some other things, it's kind of exciting what they're looking at doing. They're trying to get a GOCO grant for some of it, and there's possibility of other grants. So I said the county would probably be good for at least $500,000 on that.
I don't know why we wouldn't.
You can always promise.
Yeah.
It's coming out.
Where was that meeting at?
It was at the community room down at the bowling alley. But it was an interesting meeting. They did invite everybody to think big. So I submitted some suggestions that I'm sure are bigger than what they could afford. Anyway, that's all I've done since our last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Who led that meeting?
Linda Bull.
Okay. All right, administrative assistant.
Good.
Public comment? No, we'll move on. I do not have any unfinished business, gentlemen.
I had a question. How did we end up with the guy that's asking for Bistric, that's asking for the culvert by the county? Was Gary? We gave it to Gary to take back.
It's on the agenda today.
Yeah,
We'll talk about
yeah,
it.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But Gary was. Did we put it in Gary's hand? That's all I'm asking. Or
Yes.
is he going to come back with it? I think.
Yeah, he'll be here today.
Okay.
I have no unfinished.
Okay, we'll move on then. New business. First item of business, review the vouchers. Gentlemen, did you have an opportunity to look at those?
I did, and I had a question on one, and I probably should have taken it upon myself to get the answer, but it's right near the beginning. Professional services, financial assurance, AG engineering, environmental.
For $1,700. Yeah, that was for the landfill. I talked to Donna about that. I also had a question about that myself. $1,750. And she showed me the invoice on that. It was for I forget the name of the company to provide the assurance documents for the landfill.
Is that the one that we do quarterly or semi-annually? We have to return it to the state?
Yes, that was part of the state thing. I'm trying to pull
I think
that
it's
up here
annually.
real
That's okay.
quick, but
I'm good. I just
okay,
didn't
yeah.
remember what that was.
yeah, I had the same question.
You know, what's really kind of strange about these vouchers, we have so many of them. If someone wanted to slip in a $300 one, I wouldn't even question it. I only look at the larger ones. I mean, I don't look at every single line item, so I sure hope somebody is.
Well,
How
you
much can I
know,
get away with? And
Yeah.
that you won't look
My
at.
point, exactly. That's what I'm worried about.
Clint just turned in 5 of them.
Exactly what I'm worried about. I mean, here's what, communication, gross and building phones, $121. What is that? I don't know, but for $121, do I really want to make an issue out of it? I don't know. So
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out.
right. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we implicitly trust Miss Donna that these vouchers come in are legitimate, no question
Sure
about
they are.
it.
There's no doubt in my mind they're legit.
yeah.
But I like to know what they are
Right.
sometimes.
The other people we trust are the people hiring the people in different departments to do the job with their budget.
Yeah, interesting you bring up the grounds and buildings phones. I asked her specifically, this happens to be the last item on the first page of
where I came
First
from.
Net, because we haven't seen that First Net phone bill.
Right.
It's for public health, but it's it's their regular phone bill. It just happens to come across as FirstNet instead of AT&T. So, yeah, I had some other questions as well. That being one, FirstNet phones for $804, and then did you happen to see, gentlemen, the Seven Peaks Festival stuff?
Yeah.
How many of those were there?
I don't remember.
I saw 4 entries for $1,500 a piece, and so I followed that up for $6,000. It's a pass-through on
There's a lot of past.
some security for the sheriff's department that they provided for that
Okay.
festival in Salida. The county commissioners did send a check for $6,000 to cover the cost of that. So, and then there was, and you said it exactly right, Commissioner Prince, about I hope we look at them not to try to hold Donna's feet to the fire, but to try to make sure we understand the dollars we're signing off on.
Going, yeah.
And so I did a little research on the sheriff's vehicle impound line of $410. And I thought, are we paying to have a vehicle impounded? And so I asked Donna to look into that, and she came back, and that was a line item to cover the expense of them buying their annual supply of impound stickers that they place on vehicles. So I thought it was something to do with the recent accident involving the sheriff's vehicle, but it was not. And then there was a contract labor question I had for $816, and I just didn't read it carefully enough. That was for I don't want to say drug testing, but testing from the sheriff's department. So I was able to get my questions answered. So with that, I would move we approve the October 2019 vouchers as
I'll
presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve vouchers. Discussion? Further discussion? Sorry. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. Actually, any public comment? We're on new business. I gotta remember that. So, hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. The vouchers have been approved. Sorry. Okay. Discussion regarding broadband. We talked yesterday about whether or not we should remove that based on just exactly what you said, and we decided to leave it leave it on there because there was a couple conversations that really wasn't going to tie into what this afternoon's workshop was about. So, Commissioner Canada was going to has reached out, I guess, to the 2 towns about scheduling a broadband meeting with the county and the 2 towns. So that's one of the things hopefully we can get an update on. So.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Well, that's why I wanted to leave it on too. Got times available. Before I talk about that, though, when we discussed this in the past, did we vote to support, not the IGA, has nothing to do with the technical pieces of that, but the fact that with discussions to look at bringing a broadband capability into the valley? We haven't. Do we need to? That's the first question. Before we go and meet with the towns, do we want to have a purpose to meet with them? And I can propose what that purpose would be.
I don't, it's potentially need to go back to the record, but here's what I remember. the conversation came up about the consortium of Silver Cliff, West Cliff, and the county joining together to hire the Carmel Group as a consultant to tell us how to get
the grant.
a grant and how to get CDOT to agree. My recollection, and I'm not going to say I may not have this correct, but my recollection was that if the two towns agreed, the county would not step in its way. I think that's kind of the way we did this.
Right. That's sort of
Without us saying we are in favor of it, we just said that we would support the towns, is the impression I have.
So here's my cut, and maybe we can either decide whether it's worth voting on or whether we just by acclamation to go and meet with these guys. We know we have a county vision and a county plan, and we've got a county broadband program going with the towers. And we know that strategically, the strategic plan says it's a high priority. It's like third in line against viewscape and some other things, growth. And so it's important. And so in the meantime, the town of Silver Cliff, on their own, did hire them, and they are under contract with them to, from what I understand, this is an IGA, not the IGA, but or maybe they've only signed an exclusive or whatever. I don't know what it is.
If I could just, if you don't mind,
Well, wait a minute. Let me start over.
sorry.
They did
not
they
hire.
did a study and said, is it feasible? And we've all attended that. Okay. So, to me, it's worth looking into as a county, because it fits into our vision, to have discussions on it. And if in fact we did say if the two towns support it, both have skin in the game, it's better that all three of us do it as a county, and that's a good thing. This meeting, and then we asked me to go and line them up, and it took a while because Paul was hard to nail down. He was on vacation, different town meetings or meeting at different times. So right now the lay of the land is a discussion I think is in order to say, do we want to be part of that program? It's a program they're going to come up with to put a fiber foundation into the county, connecting 2 points from I-25 through Walsenburg back to Canyon City to I-20 to the broadband fiber. That's a foundation that without going into the technical details, which we will understand when we get into the discussions on IGAs and all that at some point. The meeting ought to be focused on participating together and exploring that, in my view, with the towns. Are you going to do it or are you not? Are you comfortable with proceeding down a path? Do we want to meet with them? The times that they can meet are Monday at 2 to 4. That's when Laswell can do it, and then the other time they can do it was on Thursday. But that had a conflict with I think Steve a bit. So the prime time to look at right now is on Monday at 2 o'clock. And then we would have the discussion, sort of a round table with just limited attendance, and basically invitees. If anybody's welcome to come, of course. But they want to focus on, for sure, getting the right people there that can have a discussion at a council level. For example, Paul wants one or two of his trustee, or his, call him trustee? Same with Silver Cliff. And then the three of us. And then whoever in the public wants to come, of course. So that's the time that I could get in the near time future. In the meantime, I've talked with Carmel to get the details on the grant itself, and I've got that. No, but I wanted. I didn't get a chance to email it yesterday, but I've got the website and what she's had to say, about it. Good news is, it's an annual process now. It's funded annually in October, so we're hitting this next cycle correctly, to go ahead. So there's no push to get it in this before Christmas. That's the good news. So we need to have the discussion. So let's figure out between our schedules when we can do it. So what do you want? What is your druthers? What do you know?
Is it okay to respond?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. What Silver Cliff did, they voted that they are in favor of the 3-entity agreement with Carmel. They earmarked their $21,000 for the $63,000 project, pending Westcliff and the county joining also. It's a consortium. Okay. So I just want to clarify that they have not hired anybody. They've agreed to fund their share of it.
Good.
If it comes to them. Okay. We have a workshop coming up a little later today. I am not in any position whatsoever at this moment to vote whether the county is in or the county is out.
I'm not
I
suggesting
want to hear
that.
from the experts that are sitting in the audience.
That's not what my
Hang on, let me
question
finish.
is.
I listen to every
I
word
agree
you
with
said.
you. Okay.
Okay.
I just like to have a discussion. I'm sorry.
It's fine, and it's great.
I'm not debating it.
No problem. It's perfectly fine. During the workshop, we'll get more information. I have met with Silver Cliff at least twice, Westcliff at least 3 times. And in fact, I believe Mayor Laswell was there at least at 2 of these meetings with Westcliff. Westcliff went back to Carmel Group with some changes. Carmel made those. Is Westcliff inclined to do this or not? I do not know. Okay, and that's what this meeting will...
Let me tell you what Paul told me,
Okay.
and I should have mentioned that too. In scheduling this meeting, he says they want to do it. They're going to vote on it with all their board on the 6th, I think it is, to formalize it. And they said that then reviewed, the comments were taken and they updated the IGA apparently. I haven't gone through the whole IGA. I've got a new copy of it just last night. So I don't know. I do know they're in favor of proceeding with a group as long as all 3 of us are in bed together.
So,
And paying for it too.
right. Now let me the last thing I'm concerned about, and I really want this in the workshop as opposed to this discussion, but I think
Yeah,
it's
I don't
an
want to-
important discussion. We did not budget $21,000
Right.
for broadband for the Carmel Group to do a study. I've asked the question multiple times, what are we getting for our $63,000, us being the county and all its entities? And I really want to hear from the experts before I'm in favor of anything with this. That's just me personally.
So what does that mean about talking to the guys about proceeding discussions? That's, it was an informal.
I think I'm fine. I have a meeting, I have a personal meeting Monday. I will reschedule that if we can do this coming Monday. I'm
2 to
assuming
4.
you're talking about the 4th.
Yeah.
I will reschedule my meeting. I think a group meeting is
I think it's a
necessary.
good thing to just have a discussion about it, and because everybody's gotten more input, they've gotten more research they've done, they've changed things. It's not a study. That's a misnomer. It's actually a plan to get the grant and build the business case before. They have to have the business case developed before they submit it to Sally.
But
So
they
we
provide
got to see.
nothing but paper.
Yeah.
Here's what you can do, and that's $63,000. I've read the agreement multiple times. They're okay. Let's leave this for the workshop.
Okay, we have more. That's good. I'm not trying to get a decision on anything. I want a decision on whether we're going to meet with them and have a nice talk about it.
Excuse me. Well, if we're going to make a decision, it needs to be now, not in the workshop.
Correct.
So that's why it's on.
That's why I wanted to talk about it now, because either we need to meet and talk, and we're going to have more information after this workshop.
So let me make my suggestion. How's this? How about we go to the meeting on the 4th. We have a workshop this afternoon with the people who I trust and believe, and put it back on the agenda for the next couple of meetings, whenever it makes most sense, and vote on it at that time after we discuss it.
All right, look, I don't want to vote for do we support an IGA the way it's written. That's not what we're voting about.
What are you voting on?
We're voting to say, we've never formally said, somebody's come to us with anybody come to us with a harebrained idea. Whether we support it or not, we need to discuss and agree and have it in the record that we're going to go pursue something so that we can talk freely with them about it. You understand what I'm trying to say? So
I think so, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
maybe that doesn't matter. You know, they have a proposal to. I think we all have agreed, at least informally, that it's important to have a fiber optic broadband capability in the county.
I absolutely agree with that. I
Okay.
think we've been consistent
Okay.
with that from day one. We want.
All right, so if
broadband
that's
in
all we
Custer
need
County.
to have discussions with them because we can't vote in that meeting with them. We're just going to listen to them talk about how great it is or not, and we're going to give them our concerns probably. Correct? Is that what you want out of that
Right.
meeting?
I don't know what the meeting's.
I don't know either. That's why I'm asking.
so,
If you want. I'm sorry, go ahead.
that's okay. I've heard a lot of white noise about this from various entities and a lot of different people. Here's my perspective. We attended a meeting, Silver Cliff Town meeting, when Carmel was there. That's the extent of it for me. Now, if I've missed something,
I've gone to multiple.
Weren't you at the meeting
Fill
with
me
Paul at the town hall? I thought you were there too. Maybe you weren't. Maybe it was just
you
Jane.
know,
Right. And then
Was it just
I've
you?
been to the West Cliff meeting. It
And
was
you've been
part of
into
the
more
board
meetings
meeting,
on
and
them
we-
than
as
any
have
of
I.
us.
Yes, I've been to a couple of Westcliff Town Hall meetings, their regular board meetings, when this
Correct.
was discussed,
Right,
That's all I've
when
been.
broadband was discussed.
correct.
Not necessarily this plan or
Okay.
whatever. So as I understand it, I don't know who wanted this meeting, but it was felt that the county and the two towns needed to get together and have a discussion.
And I think it was because at that time, Westcliff didn't want anything to do with it. At least that was our, and you made a big point, Tom. Everybody ought to have some skin in the game. That was your words. So
At the initial meeting at the
yeah,
Silver
when
Cliff Town Hall.
Well, afterwards, in our meeting right here, we had that discussion. So that's when we discussed. Well, we ought to get together and discuss it. That's what I've been trying to get us together to do. So now things have changed a little bit. We don't have to do it until we all are.
If I may,
Yeah.
I think we've been consistent all the way through that we're in favor of broadband in the county. That we understand there's going to be an expense to that. I think we should have this meeting if that's when the best time is, assuming, I think you're the only one, Tom, who hasn't said you can make
Or
it.
can you make it on either of those days, Tom?
Monday the 4th at 2 o'clock, yes.
You can.
Okay.
See, that's the
So I
problem.
think we should have this meeting. I think if you want a vote from us saying that we feel it is appropriate to continue discussions to get fiber into the county, I'm fine with that vote. But that's as far as I'm willing to go at
I'm
this
just
point.
asking technically, for the record, do we need to do that or not?
I
If we don't,
think- I
let's
think we
don't
have
worry
it
about it.
ready.
No, I don't believe it's
I don't see
necessary. If we
Okay.
want to agree to go to a meeting, we
You don't see
agree
any
to go to a
reason to do
meeting.
that, do you?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry, you had a question.
Just a point of order. Do you have to announce this to the public? I mean, do you have enough time to announce it to the public by
Sure.
Monday?
Yeah,
I just didn't know whether.
24-hour notice.
24-hour notice?
And you're correct, it needs to be.
Yeah, that's right. That's
And I
why.
need it
Yeah, if all
secret.
three of you are going to be there. I assume.
That's right. Or even two of us are going to
Yeah.
be there.
And I don't necessarily agree with that, so I'll ask council his opinion on that. I don't think we have to post notice for three of us to set in a meeting. We do it all the time. CES meeting, search and rescue, E911, well, not all
And
three of
also,
us,
some
but
of those meetings are posted.
there have been multiple meetings, all three of us have set in. 2 o'clock, yeah.
Two to
So
four.
what's your take, sir?
I don't think it's necessary. It may be a good idea to, since it's a local thing that people may have some interest in, but a lot of the meetings you go to are out.
Yeah, we don't have to.
But it's not required to post notice of this.
I'm not opposed to posting it,
No, I just thought that it was a requirement.
right, no.
Yeah, then
Well, I think then let's just have the discussion. Let's just do it. And we're going to we can come up with
It's a fact-finding thing.
That's exactly
That,
what it is.
and it's not where there's going to be any kind of policy decision or anything else made at that time. You're just gathering information to discuss later in an open meeting
Sure.
on the record.
You know, with respect, I think, to what Wilson's saying, I think we do have to be careful as commissioners to set in those kind of meetings, say, well, yeah, that's exactly what we're gonna do.
Right.
That would be
Right.
highly irresponsible to make those kind of statements.
And that's a good reason we're bringing it up today.
So I just think if we set in on a meeting and have a discussion about the direction of broadband, I think we're okay.
Yeah.
But thank you, your point's well taken, sir. I'm fine with 2 o'clock on the 4th.
right,
Where we're at.
Westcliff Town Hall. I'll make it so.
Sound like Mr. Spock.
I know. Or make it so #1 if you were John Picard.
John. Okay. Just a question, is Mr. Carmel going to be there?
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Although anybody can pop in these public meetings, so
Well,
I'm not inviting.
I understand. I didn't know if he was going to be presented.
This is a discussion between us.
Perfect.
Okay, anything else on that? Okay.
That was my point. Is anybody else got any?
We'll move forward. Presentation of from the Economic Development Company. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you? Spokesperson, spokespeople, you're all welcome to come up if you want.
Good morning.
Hello, sir. How are you? It's been a while.
Well, yeah, but it's not that we haven't been busy.
Hey, Charles. Check your pockets now, Charles.
Well, I just got my phone. Other than a couple of emails, the last time we talked, and I don't even remember how long it was, but it was longer than we
About 2
expected.
months ago.
Yeah. We had asked to be given time to quantify the cost of the proposed or the EDA requirements that we needed to complete before EDA would consider the matching funds.
And I'm trying to pull up that email. That's why I'm looking at my computer, sir. So, but go ahead.
But we have been aggressively working that, and it's taken us longer than we would have ever thought. Part of it was coordination to be sure we understood the requirements that EDA had on us as it related to the details of the 4 tasks. And then the second part was actually finding resources that would give us a bid. The largest task, the preliminary engineering requirement, report rather, we have spent considerable time with 6 different companies until we finally found one that would accept the conditions that EDA's put on us, as well as the technical requirements for, what some of them would consider a relatively small task, but with the condition that if they in fact participated and gave us support in this element and ultimately were supported in accomplishment of the task once we obtained funding, that they could not compete in the major task. Mm-hmm. And this was a condition that EDA was quite clear on. So we've gone 5 times with companies of various levels of interest, that when it came down to it and they looked at the task and looked at what the near-term reward was versus the long-term, they said, we don't want to play in your sandbox. We ultimately went back to one of their, in fact it's the SSC that you all dealt with as far as the location of the AT&T FirstNet tower. They gave us early on response to 2 of the 4 requirements. We, at that time, demonstrated that we needed all 4. They didn't
What
volunteer.
was the task that you're trying to complete?
I'll give that to you in a minute if you don't mind, because
Is it an engineering company or what?
yeah, and
Make it
all of these
clear
are engineering tasks which we were not allowed to do internally. It needed to be done by companies, and the issue was it cost. We don't have budget for it. There are tasks that we had originally foreseen would be done once the total funding was accomplished, $2 million. EDA said, no, you've got to do it before we'll consider it. One of the things we went through, like I say, 5 companies, we went back to SSC after they had given us 2 earlier deals because in a matter of frustration and looking at their website, it was promising that they might be able to support it. And ultimately they did. And in fact, I apologize for not being able to give you information ahead of time because this was finalized yesterday afternoon. So here are the summary documents, and as far as the cost goes of the 4 tasks, and as you can see at a summary level, in the left-hand column is the engineering tasks that were required, and the individual bids that we have received from them, and then the subsequent documentation is the various supporting forms to these estimates.
So just a quick question, Charles. All 4 of these, if completed, take a fair market value, monthly rental rates in the rural area, is there any guarantee that will be approved by the EDA? Is it just doing the study? If the results come back and it's not economically feasible in their mind, do we know what the criteria, the threshold we have to cross before they'll fund it?
They just said that we had to define them to the extent. And these were tasks, and we've had the long discussion about the particular land deal. They did not accept the condition that we had now, and they said these tasks have got to be defined and accomplished.
I get that. So the results are either they meet their criteria or they don't. If they don't fund the grant.
We've been assured that if we do what we said and what we stated and what we coordinated with these sources, of course.
So they just want us to spend money in order for us to get it. There's no piece of data they're going to take and say, okay, this meets our requirements, other than just doing the study or whatever it is.
Well, they had no requirements other than they wanted identified as far as the cost or such like that will be derived from this. It's just the fact that it's, as you know, dealing with the government, they're risk averse and they want to minimize their risk.
I'm saying, if they agree the risk is low, I'm just worried they won't agree. That we're minimizing their risk, and we show that there's 5 people that'll rent tower space or whatever.
6.
Whatever their criteria is, that we could still stand the chance they won't fund it. Is that true or not?
There's always that possibility. But for it to be officially considered,
You got to have that kind of data in it.
this has all got to be accomplished. The question that we had was what's it going to cost? And if you reflect back on the conversations we had, none of us knew, and there was a matter of discussion and ultimately submitted. So the bottom line is we have identified, in this case, 2 companies that the one environmental alternatives can satisfy the environmental impact requirement, and then ultimately we've got selective site consultants will do have indicated an interest and have given us cost to do the other 3 tasks. part of the complication on this is they've got to be accomplished sequentially. We've got to firm the sites first, then the environmental impact will be site
Is this in
specific.
order? You show us here.
No,
So what is it?
it's actually the
Which one's?
well, excuse me. Yeah, the first with landowner letter of intent, that would firm up the 6 sites
Okay.
from the 6 that we've got currently proposed. Then they would work the rate as far as what obligations and what it would take to support those sites. And then ultimately,
So what's number 2 then, Charlie?
it is number 2.
Number 2 is 2.
And then number 3 is the bigger task, and that's looking at each specific task, and we've got to provide ultimately engineered drawings that would show a site-specific installation of the tower and the ancillary equipment.
So is 3 in sequence then?
Yes.
So these are in sequence?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after we've actually, the item 4, once we firm sites, they can start doing the environmental impact, because that will be obviously looked at each of the 6 finalized sites.
Charles, let me clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Project 1 is first. Project 3 and 4 will run parallel after 1 is complete. Project 2 is a parallel activity that has to be completed prior to the end of 3 and 4.
Okay. So you can get it done sooner than just waiting for each one to happen.
That is correct.
A little less, but it's still, in fact, SSC still owes us a timeline, what they're projecting, and we should have that very shortly. And part of the urgency, and as far as schedule impact, is conversations with DOLA, and I think with y'all, is that they're concerned about us being able to obtain the matching funds before the next anniversary date of the
Which is
DOLA.
March 23rd or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
I'm going to dovetail on what Will said just a minute ago. Do we feel fairly confident that EDA will grant the $1 million grant to us when these studies are done, provided that the studies come back positive?
We have been assured as much as possible.
I understand.
By
There's no
trans-
assurance isn't anything. I understand
Yeah.
that, but we feel pretty comfortable that if $96,000 is spent to produce these 4 studies, that the ultimate result will be the $1 million EDA grant. Is that fair to say?
Or as it may be adjusted depending upon how we get that money.
And then my real question is it's almost $97,000,
Right.
close to it. Is that something that DOLA would allow you to use the grant that has already been approved? Can you use that money, some of that money, $97,000 of the $1 million you've already been granted? Will they allow you to use that to help obtain the second $1 million for the project?
Not being cute about it, I think the devil's in the details. I've had informal conversations during Mountain Connect and a couple of subsequent meetings with Greg, and their comment has been, we've never been in this situation before, but we will work to get you funding.
Okay. Why have they never been in this situation before? Has nobody else asked for an EDA grant before? I don't get it. I mean, there's a lot of counties in Colorado that are looking to put in broadband.
Come to find out, when we first started these discussions and we indicated that we were dealing with EDA, it was interesting, the response from some of our counterparts in the other counties is EDA's got money for stuff like this? Because the predominant use has been with USDA. And we got in this path through SCED not knowing that
So,
there was.
I don't mean to interrupt, I apologize, but do you mean we're making the fresh tracks in the snow here?
There's apparently, to some extent, yes.
Okay.
And
So we never really knew how to qualify for the second million because we had a lot of time in the past to have gathered up.
well, this is the first time
we've discussed where these are located a lot in the past. We asked if we had leases already. We asked if you talked to the landowners. We asked if we even knew where they exactly were. But we never worked them until all of a sudden these guys are pushing us hard to get the money. So evidently we didn't know.
Well, and part of the problem is in the discussions with Trent, who we've, if you remember, we had some lapse in because of his personal health and
Right.
all kinds of issues over this last year, and they never clearly came out to start with to said what. Remember, really, the economic study that we did a year and a half to almost 2 years ago was one of their requirements that they were quite specific about, in the fact that they said, how many jobs is this going to create? And it's kind of, they dribbled out these hard requirements and never until we got into this situation when we said, okay, is this ended? Is this all that you're going to need?
And next question.
Yeah, and the assurance has been to the best, and Trent has been good to work with, and he's an intermediary. When we've kind of found, he and his boss were at the Economic Development Forum here a week or so ago in Colorado Springs, and some discussion with some of our counterparts is, he's the facilitator, he's the messenger, he's between basically us and the final decision folks. And apparently his boss is the gatekeeper for EDA money. And so that at that approval level, he's done, I truly believe he's done as much as he can, and from talking to other folks, he's generally recognized and appreciated as being as good a facilitator as he
Let
can
me ask
be.
the question directly then.
Yeah.
What is your feel if we spend the money, wherever it comes from, we get this and it's positive, we found the location sites and we did the environment, and it all comes back. We go back to EDA and said, we've satisfied your requirements. What is the likelihood EDA is going to come back and say, here's our next list of requirements you need to jump through hoops before we fund the money? This is concerning to me. We didn't know about this when we started. We have this now project. It's going on quite a long time, and I commend you for doing the work you did. Please don't take this as criticism in any way. I recognize this took a long time. What I'm concerned about is we get this done. I'm assuming this is going to take, 6 months to a year to get this all done?
We have told our potential subcontractors of what our deadline is with the DOLA matching funds.
Okay.
And we're expecting that if we don't labor the time too much to get the funding and get these people under contract,
The real question is,
Can they meet?
is EDA
March?
going to come back to you?
we expect it.
What's the likelihood? I know you don't really have an answer for this, but maybe you have a feel. What is the likelihood EDA is going to come back and say, thank you for satisfying these requirements. Now here are the next set of requirements you need to satisfy before we kick in the grant?
We don't expect that.
Okay,
And we expect that when we satisfy these, they will be reviewed.
got it.
They're not on a hard schedule. They respond as a as-need basis. We would expect a quick decision, and we have been encouraged that they want to fund it.
This is 3 golf outings for the president. We're not talking about significant funds for the government.
What's Trent's last name?
Thompson. Yeah, Trent.
This ED 900C document, I'm assuming we have not seen that. If we have, I'm drawing a blank.
That is one of the submittal documents, one of 9 that is part of the application that goes into EDA when the county, and it can't go in until you guys bless it, but when it goes in, one of the documents is at EED 900 Charlie.
What is it? It's $70,000 worth of what kind of information? Environmental, construction?
It's a
What is
detail.
it?
It describes the project, what it is, public-private partnership,
That's the detail
what
bid
the
on
purpose of it
testing.
is, and I'm gonna add to what
Charges $70,000 to fill out an application? Is that what
No,
it
no,
is?
no.
Well, it's an engineering task.
Well, I want to know. That's why I'm asking. What
Well,
is the
look-
engineering task?
Look at the detailed chart.
Well, let me just comment here, because we've spent a lot of time on this.
Just tell me what it
And
is.
let me address your question first, and that is that the reason we're dealing with EDA is after DOLA awarded Custer County a $1 million grant that required a $1 million match. We notified them after talking with the commissioners that weren't all the same at that time, that there wouldn't be county money available to do the match, that this was gonna have to be a grant. DOLA, Charles, myself, Wilson, looking for money, were put in touch with the EDA by DOLA. We were referred to them because DOLA
I didn't know that.
had a relationship with EDA that said, we would like this project to succeed. We would like it to be deployed because it's typical of what other counties, the poorer counties of Colorado, should be doing. So we, just like they had that project in western Colorado, where they actually got in the business, this is not a project to get in the business. We've talked to Trent. Trent says, we are in the broadband award business. We support this project. You have to jump through the hoops and put our application in. And assuming that we have $1 million, which they have always had, and they do as we're talking to you, they will award that money to Custer County to match 100% the DOLA grant. They did come back and say that they're different because when they award money, it has to be for economic stimulus. And that's the first time Charles came, hat in hand, and asked for some support to do that broadband economic impact study that was done last summer, not this past summer, a year ago. And it defined that broadband in Custer County would have a significant economic impact on jobs, retention of jobs, et cetera, et cetera. We sent that to the feds. They were happy with that. And then we proceeded with submitting the preliminary application. They got it, they approved it, and they returned it to us and said, go ahead now with the formal application. We prepared that. You've had copies of that, it's been made available to you. And they reviewed it and came back and said, there are 4 questions that are going to require professional input. Those are the 4 questions that you see on page 1 of what Charles gave you. And they said these need to be done by outside professional expertise, just because we, the feds, want to have some assurance that this isn't just concocted.
Right.
So we went down and we got 1 and 2 quickly. We got 4 quickly. 3 has been problematic for the reasons Charles gave you. We finally have got to the point. The feds have told us, and I get a call about every 3 weeks from Trent. Are you guys ready to move forward with those 4 items? Have you found the money?
Okay.
Do it. They're waiting on us very patiently. What we need now is this bottom line money to be authorized by the 3 of you to be forwarded to DOLA, because DOLA has told Charles, if the commissioners of Custer County authorize us to find this money for Custer County, that may be taking it out of the previous $1 million grant, or they may just find a way to find new money. But they said we have to have a request from the commissioners for this $96,000 to be found.
Thank you.
We're here today for that authority to transmit this to DOLA so they can begin working on finding $97,000.
Clears it up immensely. Thank you for that explanation.
And they want this to happen. They want Custer to be a model for other counties that have the same predicament. And if they're going out of their way to help us, because they want to be able to help these other counties as well. And we're just this close as far as the EDA is concerned.
Usually when we have asked money from DOLA, we always have had to match some amount.
No matching.
And so now I find it's really great that they're willing to advance us some more money, but it's got to come out of somewhere. And when the initial talk was they were going to reduce our grant by double whatever this was.
I had a conversation with Greg Winkler at Mountain Connect initially, and he shows up at Economic Development Conference and the SDA Conference and everything else where I've been. And he asked me a couple of months ago at the SDA Conference was, how much do you think this might be? And based on what work we had done before, and to that time, I said it could very well be $100,000.
You were far off, were you?
No, as it turned out, I dealt with the federal government in my previous life for 30 plus years. Generally, it was with the Department of Defense and such like that. The bad thing is EDA and USDA are new into this broadband world. They've got a whole lot of money coming down to support it. In fact, there was a notification within the last week that made me believe that the step that we've been pursuing with EDA, there's for some reason taking it out of the process, which from what the announcement had, I don't think is necessarily a good change in the system, but we're hitting a moving target in a lot of ways.
I feel much more comfortable now that I understand. Thank you for that. Here's a question. If we ask DOLA, and I suspect we're going to ask DOLA for the $97,000, if it's a new grant, no problem at all. If it's coming off the $1 million that we currently have authorized, does that mean, just confirming, that would mean the EDA grant then would be $900,000 also? Would that's
Likely.
likely?
But the fact is, we will have accomplished part of the task that we previously identified as being.
I get it. So you would need the whole $1 million, probably would be needed since you have $100,000 already spent on
It's
it.
$250,000 less, nearly.
There's certainly
less is what
potential.
you
Let
have.
me just add to that.
Perspective.
Those items that were listed there, when Centerline did the original study, the feasibility study
Right.
for this project, they anticipated that those 4 items would be post-funding. We've now required by EDA to move them up front to mitigate some risks that they
Okay, if
envision.
that's the case, that's better.
And so as a result, we're going to have to do them anyway. We had hoped to do them with public money after the fact. We have to do it now with money, and we believe we can get public money.
Good.
But we're not going to know what DOLA can do for us until you guys make a motion to bless this request for $97,000 and turn DOLA loose on how they can find it. DOLA knows that we are not inclined to match anything. That's how we got to where we are. That doesn't mean they won't come back with a match. But listen, they have heard this story so many times about how we have no money down here and we don't do match, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how we got to where we are. But if we don't get this request into DOLA, we're sitting on dead center.
Okay.
And you still make the ultimate decision about whether to accept the terms.
Well, we got to see the terms. They're going to come back with some kind of terms.
DOLA's going to bring a proposal back and say, we can find you $97,000 of new money, or we're going to have to pre-award some of this money to you so that it can get done. There's lots of ways to get money. But nothing will happen without you guys seeing the proposal
I
and
fully
blessing it.
understand that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't fully understand it. I'd like to hear what all these ways to get new money is. I suspect we're gonna run right to DOLA and get this $97,000.
Well, that's what we just said.
And we're back full circle, right? We're right back where we were 3 months ago about
No.
running to DOLA
No.
and asking
no,
for
we're
money.
a long ways from there.
We didn't know how much to ask for.
Well, 3 months
2 or
ago,
3
you were
months
telling
ago.
us $45,000 or whatever.
Well, that was
Down
a
in
number
Wetmore
that
at
was,
meeting. That
that
was
was,
the number you guys passed.
and y'all had made a motion that you rescinded, to said we should ask for 35,000,
Right.
and that's when I said, that's what I said, is we don't know what this is,
Right.
please give us a chance. So we're now, to some extent, yes, we are
Well,
where
since
we were
then,
2
you've
months
gotten more
ago.
That's exactly what I said. We're
jacked
right
on
back
you.
to where we were. The numbers are different. That's immaterial. So you say there's a lot of opportunities to go get new money. What are they besides running to DOLA? That's what I'm
That's
interested
where we're
in.
going to go with this DOLA, because they're either going to come up with a new source of money for $97,000 without addressing our existing award for $1 million, or they're going to come up with a way to say, we are going to pre-award part of that $1 million, and that has a consequence, because that will shrink down the amount of EDA funding, because they will only match the
Right.
DOLA
Very,
grant.
very aware of
We
that.
did have a $90,000 contingency that we had put in the plan, so we do have some wiggle room. I hate to see a contingency be chopped out this early in the process, but to get the money, it may be a cold, hard reality.
So let me ask a question if I may. This question's come up a couple of times in the past. I just want to hear it again. If DOLA funds $97,000, however they do it, and for whatever reason this project falls through and doesn't get done, are we the county gonna owe money back to DOLA?
Guarantee it. They've already told us that.
That is not a guarantee, because that's all in what the T and Cs are that come with the DOLA grant. And if we were in your shoes, we would say, we understand what you're doing. You found this $97,000. We have to spend this money to move this project forward. We all believe, they believe, that this will be funded if we get the application from Custer County submitted, and that Commissioner Flowers, because you're the approving signature on the submittal, we will get that money. So they understand, everybody understands that the issue is to manage risk, and everybody's been attempting to do that since the beginning. But you can't eliminate risk in a $2 million project.
I get it.
Let me
Whose
ask a
risk
question
is
after
it?
you're done.
Is it the county's risk or will it be DOLA's risk?
It's DOLA's risk.
So if you're telling us that, I feel you've done a really good job in getting this project where it is to this point, but if something happens and it falls apart and they have given to the county $97,000, and that's real cash, we're not a promise of a million. They gave us 90,000, we hired all this, project falls through, is DOLA gonna come and say, hey, commissioners, we want our money back?
Well, I don't think anybody knows at this point. That's what I was saying. We're not asking you
That's
to
not good.
approve the expenditure. We're asking you to approve for DOLA to pursue it. DOLA will come back with their solution, whether that's acceptable to you at that point or not. We won't know until they do that, because they may have different sources of money.
I understand what you're
And
saying.
DOLA's not going to put $97,000 at risk, because once we get, once you get approval from DOLA for $97,000 and you accept the Ts and Cs of that grant, you will then notify the project that we can move forward. The only thing we're going to issue an NTP on is Project 1, because Project 1 is to get a letter of intent from 6 landowners that they're willing to allow this tower to be placed on their property for a period of at least 21 years. Now, when that is done, then we can say we have a high degree of probability that this will be successful, and we'll issue an NTP, notice to proceed, for projects 3 and projects 4 and project 2, and then we'll move forward. If we don't, number one, you have the authority to make sure that DOLA doesn't take that bite out of you, because you won't approve the $97,000 funding without some. Secondly, you're not going to spend that money, and DOLA's not going to allow us to spend that money as a bulk, as a shotgun blast. it'll go out the door slowly so that we have checks and balances.
So I think I heard,
Okay?
and maybe I didn't process it well. If item number one, $7,750, cost of getting 6 letters of intent, if we get the money from DOLA and we spend the $7,700 and we can't find 6 people who agree to this for the 21 years, the project ends at that point, and the county's on the hook for
No, that's not what I said.
$7,750.
DOLA would have
I'm
to eat
asking a
that.
question.
DOLA would have to eat that $7,750. Now that's how we're going to negotiate that and present that to DOLA when we.
That's a term and condition that you have to negotiate, yet you don't know whether they'll
Yes, sir.
accept it.
Right.
Exactly.
And if it's too onerous, you guys are not going to approve it, and we will get to that point where they say, here's $97,000, here's the T's and C's, and you'll say, we can't live with the T's and C's.
The thing about it is,
Point's well taken.
and
Let
in,
me ask
yes, go ahead.
I want to talk about the EDA grant first. You mentioned the 4 of these items were part of the program plan, in effect. And if they would have matched the $1 million up front, then we would be spending the total amount of this without any penalty from EDA. Why is it that they can't not penalize us now? Because if this was part of the program plan, it seems to me that they would match it entirely, without decreasing it.
I agree with you.
Right? I mean, that makes sense.
If they take this,
Have you made that point to Trent or anybody yet? Because it just doesn't make sense. If it was if it was something we should have done in the application process, I can understand them reducing it, because if the DOLA grant goes down by X, then that's just the way it is. They were going to match DOLA. That's one. The other one is DOLA's penalty. In the past, we've heard that they would, they're not in the business to run programs. We had a ski area up here that was funded by the SBA, and they got so wrapped up in it, they were actually managing the ski lift by the time it ended, and they lost money on it, and people got fired. There's a big scandal in Washington, D.C. over it because the government was in the middle of it. DOLA doesn't want to do that, and you're right. There was another scandal that caused this to be the deal you had with SSC is real. They had consulting companies or systems engineering companies putting a plan together, and then the parent company like Lockheed Martin would bid on it. They had it was like collusion almost. So they outlawed that, which makes it hard, because your expertise is, it's hard. So DOLA is going to be kind of skeptical, and I'm worried about, until we ask, we're not going to know whether they're going to penalize us or not. I mean, we're being pretty optimistic to think they're going to give us another
I'll put it this way.
$50,000 or $100,000.
In the almost 8 years we've been dealing with DOLA on broadband, and more recently with the Office of Information Technology at the state, I mean, I've gotten 2 emails within the last month or 6 weeks from Teresa Ferguson, who's with the Office of Information Technology at the state, wanting to know, how are things going?
Right.
Can we help?
Okay.
They want us to be successful.
Right, I get that, but helping us might be giving us the loan, and reducing the cost and putting the burden of risk back on the county. And that's the last point is, you mentioned these projects, if disapproved and the money's out there being spent, then who's going to eat it?
Depends on the terms and conditions that we haven't seen.
That's what we're just bringing it up.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem necessarily asking. I just don't want to be fooling ourselves, because we've had this issue for a long time now, and I appreciate the effort you guys have gone through to keep the heat on these guys. And in the end, we don't know still who the landowners are, and yet we don't know if they're going to approve it yet, and all that. So
that's step one.
I know.
But if you don't start, you don't.
I know. You got to do it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, to open the discussion, I'd like to move that we make a request to DOLA for $97,000. And I'd like to make the request as a new funding, not from the already approved $1 million that grant that we have, to allow the 4 studies to be done so that we can fulfill the requirements by EDA for their grant.
I'll second it so we can talk about it.
Right.
Been moving and seconded to request funding from Department of Local Affairs for new funding, not to include funding taken out of the awarded $1 million grant. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Discussion?
Okay, so that's my question. When you said new, did you guys understand it was new money, or was it for you? Did you understand it was we'll go find something to get back?
It was more the latter, in the fact that the last discussion I had with Greg was, and I gave him the $100,000
Okay.
guesstimate. He admitted, and he kind of shared his open thought
Okay.
process, and there were a number of things that he talked about that were other than they're in addition to the $1 million and some
So
other
the reason I
things.
bring that up, Charles, is if we qualify it like that, you may limit it. I mean, if
I
you go
would-
in there and say we're only going to entertain ideas if you come back with a new grant.
I would suggest, based on that, is that we ask them to investigate, maybe those aren't the words,
Always find
alternates to
funding.
fund that. And then we start a dialogue between y'all and the,
If I may, the reason I said it, I made the motion the way I did, is because DOLA then would come back to us and say one of a couple of things. One is, we found out it's $97,000, irrespective of the $1 million we've already done, we move forward. They may come back and say, we're willing to take it from the $1 million, and then we can decide whether that's what we want to do. Or they may just come back and say, it is not available. Okay. With that must come the restrictions on what will happen in the event that this project does not proceed, if they give us money. I am very concerned about this county being on the hook for $100,000, considering our budget that we approved 2 weeks ago. We do not have that money. So, and I grant it that Dole is tired of hearing us say we don't have the money. We don't have the money. I mean, we just don't have it. So I would like to ask them for $97,000 to help this project move forward. And let them come back to us and say, we will do it, but here's how. And then we can decide whether we proceed or not, and what the requirements are.
Yes, sir.
I would just recommend that you add 1 word, 2 words to your motion, and that is you're asking for a no match grant. That clarifies it, that otherwise, we know that they'll come back with a grant match.
Thank you for that suggestion, and I would like to amend my motion to include no match grant. Thank you, that was a very good point.
Can we do that on a friendly motion, or a friendly
It's fine.
amendment?
I'm fine
You
with
seconded the motion, you're all right with that?
it.
Uh, Yeah, I'm a little surprised that you didn't include the possibility of them going into that $1 million fund, but I appreciate and heard what you said about that. Makes some sense. It could prolong the process a little bit, but there's a couple of thoughts that I'd like to share. One is, I truly do appreciate, I appreciate the amount of work and effort and time. I don't know that, but I got a sense of these documents just don't fall out of the sky. Somebody's got to pound those out. So please understand, subsequently, whatever I say is prefaced with the acknowledgement of your time and effort to this whole project. I think I get that. I don't want to sit here and say I get it because I haven't done it. But none of these comments are to be taken, well, the guy has no idea. And I probably don't have any idea, but I'm trying to appreciate the time and effort. I'm skeptical. I remain skeptical about several things. And as Wilson has said, we're not going to know. We have to live in this skeptical environment. We're trying to get you to say, don't worry about it, it's covered, it's gonna happen. If you said me that, I'd say you're full of it.
That's
We
right.
don't
I
know.
would tell you to leave if you
Yeah,
told me it's
That's
guaranteed.
right. But that's what we want you to tell us, but if you told us, we wouldn't believe you anyway. So,
Right.
we're in that thing of blind faith, and I don't like to be there. We're trying to minimize our risk as commissioners. $100,000 in the scheme of $2 million, not a lot of money, but it is a hell of a lot of money on our budget that we don't have. I'll support the motion today. My first question was going to be, what is your ask? Are you asking us to come up with $97,000? Eventually we got around to fleshing that out, but it took a while.
Okay.
So-
Here's the prepared statement I have for you all to, I think, answer it. I said, assuming no change in your position, that no county funding will be provided to support these requirements, we request that a resolution be approved so that this documentation can be provided to DOLA for their consideration to provide required funding, period.
And we'll move along as time goes. I'm not sure a resolution is the proper way to go, but I'll defer to council for that. I think a motion from us probably would be sufficient, which is obviously what's on the table now. So, I also have skepticism about we just keep feeding this money pit until we're all upside down and gone. I don't know. I hope this is the last of it. It may not be, but that's my hope.
We've asked the questions to EDA. We've given as good an answer as Trent can give us from his position in the EDA organization. We have been assured that if we accomplish this, that we will get a timely and positive response from the EDA as far as the grant.
I'd feel a lot better about what you just said, Charles, if you had asked him, and maybe you have, that just running through the motions and spending the money doesn't guarantee success. You got to have something they're looking at to say, if the landowners don't do X, we're not funding it. Or if the environmental narrative doesn't accomplish X, you got to meet these minimum requirements before we can go forward. It has to be. Otherwise, why are we even bothering to spend the money?
They've pretty well stated their requirements and labor, and it's not anything that any of us can argue about as far as the ultimate results.
So there is some risk here, is my only point. And Tom's point about more money after bad. I mean, once we spend it, we just got to make sure who's not on the hook to pay for this. If we don't pass this, what happens? And that is DOLA going to eat it? I mean, how are we couching the money?
Until they offer a grant.
And that goes back to the resolution, or the motion that we've got on the floor, is I think it limits us to begin with. If we say we only want new money, rather than DOLA, what are you going to come back with some options for us? What are some? We want all the options possible, or we're already, and we ought to get what the criteria is. Are we going to pass? What are you going to do if we don't pass any one of these?
I've got one other point. It's not germane to the motion, so I shouldn't even be making it, but I'm going to make it so I don't forget it. So it's on your plate instead of mine. And it goes back to my original question about the ED 900. See, that's 70 grand. I haven't even seen that document. Don't have a clue what the hell that is. I know it's within the engineering report.
If we showed it to you, I'm not sure that you'd be a whole lot more understanding afterwards. But
went through that thought process too. But then at least I'd have seen the document that I'm getting ready to vote to spend 70 grand on.
You're looking at over 100 years of experience of dealing with the federal government.
The third piece of paper, which is a total of 4 pages stapled together in your document that we've given you, is a worksheet that will identify where the $70,000 is going to be spent to answer 11 questions. So you have the information.
I disagree with you, sir. Until we have the ability to go look at that document, we do not have the information.
But sir,
go ahead.
With all due respect, and where that's going, with all due respect, the motion is to ask DOLA for funding to move forward so that this project can move forward.
Right.
Without this $97,000, this project is done. We walk away, we thank them for years and years of work, and nothing gets done. So
And that's exactly why I said my comment wasn't germane to the motion.
And when we get to spending the money, then we can get into the details. Because if we don't get the first $97,000, I don't care what this form says.
Right, we need to get into them, we need to get them to give us options to discuss.
Further discussion? Public comment?
So are we good with leaving the motion restricting the money? I'm still a little bit concerned about
The
it.
way here was what I said, really, maybe we ought to ask Ms. Kelly to read it back.
Can we read
but
it back?
The way I intended it was, I was asking for new money only. And then if they come back and say, no, we won't give you new money, you must take it out of your million, then we have that opportunity to decide whether we're okay with that or not.
That's
I would
okay, it just
prefer they
prolongs the
say-
timeline, maybe.
What timeline? I mean, this thing's been dragging on for how many years
We
now?
gotta go back through another cycle.
But remember, DOLA, we're getting to this March deadline.
Right, I know,
And
we wanna do it
DOLA's-
sooner than later.
That's DOLA's deadline. They're not going to be holding the project up.
I know.
The motion is to
Ask for new-
authorize DOLA to seek funding exclusive of the $1 million awarded grant.
Right.
That was the motion. If you want to amend it, you certainly are welcome to, and we can decide
Non-matching.
whether we amend it.
Non-matching.
Non-matching.
And non-matching new money.
All right,
Go.
we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, pose nay. Motion carries. You're going to carry this message forward to DOLA.
With your permission.
We do not need a letter from
That's what I was
us.
gonna ask, do you want a letter that they
I think it requires that.
Okay, would you draft such, sir, or you want me to do it?
With a copy of the motion that has passed in that letter.
Well, it would state in the letter
Yeah.
that the motion,
Right.
and what the body of the motion was, and it was unanimously approved.
Board
at this
approves
meeting.
you guys to go ask.
I think since I'm not quite sure I understand, I'll either have Charles prepare it for your approval
Okay.
or have you prepare it yourself.
I'm fine with
I mean,
that.
you all have done that with DOLA more times than we have, as far as cover letter. And we would suggest that we can give you a digital copy of all this, so that, it can be related over the internet.
And in a perfect world, it would be nice if that letter could leave Custer County no later than the end of day tomorrow.
Hand delivered or mailed, or how do you want it?
However, whatever horse you want to use.
If the Pony Express comes through the county, let's take advantage of that.
So the letter meaning to you guys, or do you want to get
No,
to
this-
DOLA?
You all are the requesting authority.
Right,
But they take email real well.
and
Get us the date.
I'm assuming Christie's not in this loop, this would be Winkler.
Both of them are.
And they're not ignorant of this whole issue. They're waiting to hear.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. We will move on.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Attainable housing is next up, you can
We have,
sit
I
there.
have another economic development
Okay.
issue.
Go ahead.
Can I ask Charles a question too?
You may.
Have you got another one of those packets?
Yes, there was an extra one there for Kelly.
Thank you.
And like I say, we've got a digital copy we can give you too, if that's. A question totally different, but as it relates to the implementation of the Custer County Economic Prosperity Strategic Plan, I was curious as what the action on the part of y'all is on that, because it does, from the initial get-go, when the grant was initially initiated, at least the intent of ED was to grow on the capital or the community assessment that we'd done the previous year, to give us a gap between that community assessment and provide an implementation plan, which the strategic plan did, and it, by its very nature, needs some follow-up, and wondered what the action was on y'all's part for that goal.
Okay, I would probably defer to Commissioner Kanda for comments
So
or response.
what we're doing, and we told Cheryl at the end that we were going to meet and check our status against the plan. And we were going to try to do that the end of July, I believe it was, or time frame. Got tied up, had a conversation with Cheryl, and I went back and checked the implementation plan, and we are actually making some progress against it, doing the things we're doing with the broadband now, for example. So I said we would continue to do that, and we're, at some point soon we're going to have a public meeting. We'll just bring it up in here and say, all right, now here's where we are. We had this strategic plan, because we bring up the strategic plan almost every other meeting, if not every meeting. We talk about what our priorities are in the county, and it has to do with water, growth, broadband, all those things. So we've been comfortable not just having a sit down and saying, we need to build a fire under something right now, because we've got guys in actually executing points of contact that are actually doing things. So we intend to do it. It probably won't happen until after Christmas now, a summary meeting where we'll actually do that, because we swore to the people that helped build that plan that this is not a plan that's going to sit in a shelf or in a drawer.
Well, what concerned me was the visibility of the plan had been lost because it did drop off the county's website.
Well, it shouldn't be. I don't know why
Well,
it's on.
it had been. It's been
Kara,
reinitiated.
did we ever find the implementation plan? I know we found the implementation plan, but did Vern get it back onto the website?
It was going to be on until December 31st.
Yeah. So it should be there.
Okay. Just wanted a status because
We,
because economic development had been indicated as an action item on a number of the points, and there had been no communication.
The implementation plan didn't. We need to look at. You need to pull that up and pull that piece out.
Mr. Prince?
Thank you. At the risk of being tarred, fed, and run out of town,
We all have that risk.
sir,
We all have that risk. Yes.
I've been there already. You haven't. If the county asked economic development to kind of take the lead in implementing the strategic plan, is that something that your organization would be interested in?
Yes.
I'm very concerned right now that we're not doing a very good job implementing a plan. We talk about water, we talk about broadband, but there is a specific plan that was delivered to us that's not being followed, in my opinion.
We need to talk about that. That's good.
So
Good idea.
I, for one, have given this a lot of thought. You and I spoke about this, not a brand new concept in my mind. I think this is, I would like to initiate that discussion, that this plan be, that we ask economic development to take the lead in implementing the plan. We spent a lot of money on the plan, as did both the towns. It's an excellent plan, but a plan is only as good as it's executed. I know you guys get things done. I'm looking at it, okay? I think this is something that warrants merit.
Talk about it.
Well, I guess if you're interested, you could certainly put that on a forthcoming agenda item, and if you want an action
Right.
to come from that, we need to put it on an
I
agenda.
understand.
Okay.
I was just asking,
Yeah.
the real question was,
Gotcha.
are you interested? And if the answer is yes, I would almost like a discussion to take place. It doesn't have to be a workshop, it could be during a meeting. How it would work, where it would go, what you would do with the plan if it was, we invited you to take the lead on it. Of course, would the county be intimately involved with it? But somebody taking the lead, I feel like it's floundering.
That was our intent. And, in recollection, it took us 4 years to get funding to do this last phase. And, that complemented that was the initiatives using Cheryl by both towns and the Rotary and Round Mountain to use it so that at least there's some interconnection between all the plans. And I think it's significant for our community in total, because as far as I think, regardless of what our history is, it's probably the first time that so much thought has been given to our future, and it would bother me. I mean, one reason why we initiated it was because of the comments that so many plans end up in a drawer over here gathering dust, and that was certainly the intent, that we would help perpetuate that, but also realizing with the tasks that were identified and the priorities that were identified within collectively the community, there are things that require actions on both towns and the county's government that are certainly beyond the unilateral authority of any one organization. But yes, we would certainly like to embrace that idea.
I know you're very busy, but could you come up with, and it doesn't have to be immense, it doesn't have to be 10 pages, could you bring to us for at a future meeting, and I can set it whenever you are asked to be set, just kind of some bullet points on here's what economic development would be able to do with the plan, how you would get it done, what you know, just give us some kind of guideline on what if we asked you to take the lead on it, what you would do with that if you did have the lead on it. And I'm not trying to put a bunch of work on you. I know you got enough going on in your life. But I would like to have something say, well, this is what they're willing to do. We all have so many other things going on. I'm concerned it's falling through the crack. It is definitely an economic development issue, the strategic plan. That's what it is. So if you can kind of give us some guidelines on how you would implement it if we asked you to take the lead, I would really appreciate that.
Okay, that's Jay speaking.
That's Jay speaking,
so
is right.
let's
I am
get
not speaking for anybody else.
The way we need to conduct business. I agree. And I am proud of this plan, personally. I am. It's a good plan, and a lot of people put a lot of effort in it. And we've got to make sure that we do the right thing to make it happen. I'm worried about things not getting done, too. And in a county where we don't have the money to pay people to do things, you depend on volunteers. And in fact, we had a bunch of volunteers participating in that plan that came to work. We need to get a formal process in where we get people to come and start participating and make sure we're following through. And the county, it's our plan. It's this county's plan. And there are a lot of people that we need to consider to help us. There's no question about it. These guys being one. They're not the only ones that can do it. So we've got to be careful how we proceed to keep it involving everybody as the county. So we need to have that discussion. We're getting drug into the weeds now when we don't need to in this meeting, but I want to see another meeting.
We're dragging into the weeds at all. I disagree.
Well, you just made a request of somebody.
I asked them for a request to say if we asked you to take the lead on it. I didn't say turn it over to anybody. Take the lead on it. Mm-hmm. How would you accomplish this? And I fully expect them to come back saying, these are the organizations that we have involved with us when we did it. So, I mean, I knew this wouldn't be real popular when I brought it up, but
it's not.
I'm really concerned.
I'm glad you brought it up. We need to talk about it.
Right.
Because we get into these meetings and we get focused on the issue at hand, the hot item, the issue, the crisis.
I'll put it this way. There's one organization in this county that is interested in the comprehensive economic development of our community, and that's Custer County Economic Development Corporation. Mm-hmm. We realize y'all have got a whole lot of other things. The town governments have got a whole lot of other things.
No, and I appreciate that.
Exactly. That's our focus. Mm-hmm. And I think we've proven that the dog in the hunt is to better our community. We don't have any financial situation or any dog in the hunt as far as personal betterment or enrichment. So,
well, I think you guys are working better than in the past, really, to tell you the truth, with the county. Okay.
I think
Not as arrogant.
I understand
That's your word.
That's really what I'm
where
saying.
Jay's coming from, and I think I understand Bill's angst about this, and it comes down to what the process is. Can any individual commissioner sit in a meeting and say, hey, we want you to come and do this for us? Well, no, you cannot do that.
I asked them to.
But when we,
So I think the point is, your question should not probably have been pointed to them. It should have been pointed to us as commissioners to say, do we as the county commissioners want to ask them to come back and give us a presentation about that? I think that's where you were coming from, correct?
and I always worry about somebody speaking for the county that hasn't got the authority to spend the county money. We do. And so you gotta be careful when you're out in public making statements that represent Custer County, that your people look at you, well, they must have the money and the authority, and they're out here making deals with us. And that when I said you're doing better, that's what I meant by that. You guys are not coming across in meetings like arrogant, whatever, I'm running Custer County. And we
Well,
got these ideas.
that's not, certainly not been our intent.
I know.
But again, relating to the workshop this afternoon and the previous discussion, we've been working this issue for almost 8 years. We have not been invited to any of these cooperative meetings between the three governments. Now, if you don't want us there, tell us. If you want us there, tell
If
us.
we told you not to be there, you would be told. We do that with everyone. We don't issue personal invites to every person in the county, Charles. It's a county meeting,
but
and it's publicly put up for
It's
everybody.
been hard enough for us to
And we
even
know that
find
you
out
guys
when
are
the
involved
meetings
with
are there.
broadband. Yeah, that's a
Well-
given. And we've asked,
What's the purpose of this meeting, the workshop?
We're gonna meet with John Genovese to discuss this whole broadband issue, AT&T or CenturyLink's efforts, Town of Silver Cliff's efforts, this proposed IGA, which I have not seen. That's what this workshop's about this afternoon. We asked to meet with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I get your point, Charles. I
I
don't,
mean, we don't barge in on meetings when we aren't
Right.
invited.
Right.
And we have not been invited. We think we have something to offer to the process. And so, I mean,
Right.
that's my sermon
Right.
as it
Yeah.
relates to that.
from my perspective anyway, I believe this workshop this afternoon was an effort for us to get some additional education. I think we all believe Genovese brings to the table a certain expertise and experience level, and that's why we asked to sit down and talk with him.
John, we have a lot of respect for his people. He hasn't had the benefit of dealing for the last 8 years with the process.
Right.
And we have, and I think we in economic development have some relationships that we've nurtured with folks that have a real impact on our future collectively, meaning DOLA, OIT, that while there may be formal relationships between the governmental agencies, there's some informal relationships that help our initiatives. And I think that's one thing we bring to the table, is because we've got some relationships. When you get calls from Denver unsolicited saying, how can we help? Those are things that we need to take advantage of.
Right. Yeah. And again, you have to take this workshop this afternoon, in my opinion, at face value. It was our request of him to come and sit down and talk with us about broadband. Not getting in the weeds about what's been done, what hasn't been done, who did what, who said what, none of that. It's just an informational meeting. You're welcome to attend that. No one was invited to that meeting. We didn't exclude Economic Development Committee. We didn't invite anybody to that meeting. It's a workshop for us to sit down
you know,
with him and have a
it's
conversation.
like I can come to you and we can have a discussion. The three of us need a meeting and we put it out and we want to talk and gather information from everybody that has a dog in the fight. And we respect you guys for what you've done and your expertise. You got a good broad expertise base to lend to the programs. And in fact, we would expect you to do that once we get, if we go to pursue that USDA grant and we're gonna put a program plan together to get the money, to execute it, to get that fiber in here. We'd expect some comments from you guys to
Well,
participate.
that fiber
When we
has,
get to that point, we're not at that point yet.
well, that fiber, and as it was supported by the Silver Cliff study, we think reinforced what we put into the plan 5 years ago.
So do we.
And to that extent, but there's issues that
Right.
we've worked in preparation for that, and it's great.
Well,
the
you
fact
know,
that
and-
we've got the three
And
governments.
the three of us have brought that up in meetings, Charles, because in fact you were taking two steps. You need a fiber connection to it eventually to the towers. This is taking a step forward. Might get it sooner than doing them in sequence like we had planned. So that's a good thing, and I know you guys recognize that. So
Okay, before we move on to the agenda, by consent, we'd like to take about a 3-minute break.
might take 5 now.
And,
Waited that much
We'll
longer.
resume if that's all right.
Okay, and I'll put my other hat on and we'll talk about it.
Can I make, who's gonna write this letter?
I will do it.
You'll do, okay.
I'll probably send a copy of it to you for your perusal before I send it out. If
Would
you'll be
appreciate
available
that.
to look at it, I'll do it this afternoon. Okay, we stand in recess. Order our next, well, before we move into our next item of business, Commissioner Prince, you want to press forward on,
If I may, please.
okay?
To continue what we ended just before the break about discussion of implementing the strategic plan, a follow-up and all that. And I made the comment that, Charles, would you be interested in bringing to the commissioners kind of how you would see that working, kind of taking the lead on that? The county would still be, of course, the responsible party. And I think Chairman Flowers said it properly. I probably should have gone through them first, so let me do it this way. Fellow commissioners, would you be okay if I asked Charles to come to a future meeting to discuss with us if we chose to do this, and it's not just a discussion on what would happen if economic development took over the lead on the strategic plan implementation and follow-up. And if you're okay with that, I'd like to ask him for a date in the future of board meetings so that we can start that discussion, if that's something that makes sense, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
I'd support it, yes.
Yeah, me
I think
too.
we got to have the discussion.
And here's why. The strategic plan was one thing. Development was where I was hard over on making sure we covered bases, and that's why I got involved as heavy as I did. The implementation plan, there's a lot of pieces to that, and it's important to have all the help we can get. So I have no issue with asking for help.
Good.
Okay.
Excellent.
How long would you like till you come back? I mean, do you want to come back in December, end of November? You tell me and I'll tell you when our board meetings are, and you could pick a time and we'll ask Ms. Kara to put you on there.
If there's a meeting on 5 December, I think we can support that for an introduction.
Let's go ahead, Ms. Kara. Could you please put on for our December 5th BOCC meeting,
Yes, sir.
economic development discussion regarding the strategic plan?
Okay. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. And thanks for even considering.
You know, in fact, in a company or a government agency or with us, you would have a strategic plan developed, and then leads would have been assigned in each area to implement that thing. We haven't, we don't have that luxury. So it's a good thing to get things going.
Good, good.
Did you say December 5th?
December 5th.
So Kara, the wording on that again?
The discussion, and I haven't gotten it back down.
Okay.
Discussion on economic development. Is that
With
right?
economic development.
With economic development regarding the strategic plan.
Implementation, I think, is
Implementation of the strategic plan, right.
Do we anticipate an action coming out of that discussion? If so, then we need to change the word from discussion to
Yeah, we do.
consideration.
Well, maybe not. Yeah, probably. It could be rolling.
Well, why don't we leave it so that we could make the decision if we chose, but we don't
So
have to.
consideration,
Yeah, let's do
Because we
consideration.
put discussion, technically.
And really, my
we wouldn't be
intent
allowed to
was
vote.
for the discussion
Right.
only.
Oh, okay.
But from
I
the
assume-
discussion, we may
right.
want an action item, so, no, that's
Yeah.
appropriate.
Or we may
Okay.
not.
I'm fine with
Okay,
that.
all right.
Thank you.
December 5 it is. All right, we'll move on then. The next item of business, attainable housing. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry I missed your meeting yesterday.
Well, you weren't the only one. There
And
was,
so you did meet.
we did meet.
Oh,
Here
yeah.
waiting for you.
Well, and in fact, we didn't initially. There were three of us there, so we did not have a quorum. We called and caught Mike Liebman, and we were able to function business. And that's basically what prepared us for what we're talking about now. But you weren't the only one, and
It was on a calendar.
well.
Yeah. And I had it on my calendar.
Well, and it was probably my mistake in the fact that we said, okay, we're going to have a meeting at 3:30 to brief the housing plan. Let's just have it over at the West Cliff.
Right.
And
Well, I had the 3:30 meeting down at the town hall.
I did too.
Yeah.
But I had the
Yeah.
2:30 here, and it was
Right.
on that calendar, so.
Yeah. Anyway, there wasn't an effort made, I can tell you that.
well, thank you. But we did accomplish the business that was necessary. And to give the history, if you will remember over a year ago, I believe you made, Tom, you made contact with Colorado College, and we got an indication that they were willing to sell some of the properties, 19 lots that they had in Silver Cliff, at what we refer to as a below market price. When we got the Elpamar grant, that said, okay, that gives us some resources that we can go deal with. We worked for some time to establish contact with Colorado College and try to set up a face-to-face meeting, and we never could get a mutual time that would work. And basically, Steve Laswell and I, my vice chairman and myself, were the subcommittee working that. So in frustration, we found, okay, we can't get to talk, but we'll just give you a proposal. So we offered initially $36,000 of the $40,000 Elpamar funds to acquire all of the 19 lots.
So it was all of them, huh?
For all of them initially.
Okay.
Yeah. They came through and accepted that. But then, and you might remember that we were on the agenda to bring this to you.
Right.
We found an error
Right.
in our presentation to Colorado College. And in fact, it was immediately before I...
100,000 you put in.
Well, no, it wasn't money. It was how we justified the cost on comparables, because we understood that the lots were 25 by 100,
Right.
and in fact they're 50 by 100, and that threw the numbers all off. We realized that came out of one of our board meetings. There was a discussion, and to Mattie Burke's credit, she kind of rode the horse, and she says, "This is not right." And sure enough, we identified and clarified that they were lots twice as big as what we had based the comps on. So that threw, and we had really told Colorado College, because we didn't have an opportunity of a face-to-face discussion, in our transmittal, we gave them more information that kind of worked us into a corner, that they would have eventually realized that we were in error.
Right.
And it was like 2 days before
I did offer him less.
Yeah. And so, and it was right before I had to go to Elpamar and give a status report. And so I said, we made a mistake, and we need to correct it. It was interesting, kind of in parallel, Jim Little is on the Elpamar committee, and Jim's real interested in what we're doing. And I told him, I said, we screwed up. And one of the interesting things that came out of it, he said, do they know this is Elpamar money? And I said, I didn't tell them it was.
Yeah, I don't think.
I didn't relate it to them, and they said, "Well, you should have." And then we were at the status meeting in Buena Vista, and we gave the status. We told them we'd made a mistake and we were going to have to correct it. And Kyle Sybil, the chairman of the group, says, "Did you tell them it's Elpamar money?" And I said, "Not yet, but I will." And so he said, "I know the vice president of finance with Colorado College. We've been old friends. Be sure that they know it's our money, because it's probably not the only Elpamar money that they see."
I would not have ever thought about telling them what the source of the money was.
Well, and generally that's the case.
Yeah.
And that's the precedence I had taken and the way I had taken. So I got a hold of them. I said, "We made a mistake and we've got to adjust it." And so what we did, the easy thing was said, "Well, we made a mistake and here's the correction, but we still offer you $36,000 for all 19 lots." And he said, "Well, it's going to take us a while to look at this because I've got to go to, and part of the problem early on, we started during the summer session, and I got a feeling that they didn't necessarily come into the office all the time, and so it was a hard time in taking a long time communication. So we made another $36,000 for 19 lots. They came back and basically said, "We can't accept that, but we will we'll give you." There's 9 of the lots, which is like 3/4 of a block. "We'll sell you that for $36,000," which, and that's that piece there.
You said 9, this letter says lots 1 through 12.
Let me pull the report on that.
The
Hold on.
email that you got from Lori Seeger, you talking about 9 or 12?
There's 12 lots that they're accepting $36,000 for.
Okay.
And with the intent,
That was your original bid or whatever.
The money.
the money hadn't changed.
Right.
The how much?
Size of lots, dude.
Well, the size of the lots and how many lots.
Okay.
The board has looked at that, and that provides us still a very good deal on versus, and they did some speculation on what the land's worth, which, that's subject to everybody's database. The board has approved the acceptance.
Fleetwood.
The housing board is.
The approval board has considered that, and we consider it still to satisfy the intent of what we're doing, in that we can, and Elpamar likes the idea that we're going to buy that, we're going to resell it with a little leverage on it, and that we'll be able to get that money use multiple times. And they've already indicated that, and a condition that we think in a formal offer we need to have is that we have first right of refusal on the balance of the lots at the same price as funds may become available. So either turning the money by resale, or there has been indications from Elpamar that there may be more funds in the process that we could see that.
Do you have an action that we need to do here, Charlie?
Well, we need a formal offer for purchase from the county on y'all's part, since the board can't do it, to satisfy the conditions that are proposed, and the board recommends and
So you
suggests
got
that.
the numbers and the details for that.
Yeah.
So we do it.
And I had actually, when we got that, I'd got a hold of him, and he said he had other things and he preferred to wait till after this meeting. So, which I told him that.
Because what I would need would be a motion
Right.
authorizing me as the county attorney to make this formal offer to purchase under the terms of the email that you got, 60% of the assessed value for these, a total of $36,000. And if part of it is the option to purchase the remaining
Right.
lots at that same price. If we make an offer on that, or right of first refusal, if they get some other offer on it, we.
Right, the remaining lots the same number. Same number of lots.
No,
No,
It
it's,
might go
it's,
9
it's, it's the balance of the 19
they're
lots.
the same
Oh,
size.
same price per
Yeah.
lot.
7
Yeah.
lots, 7 lots.
Exactly.
Per lot base.
You make it specific.
3,
Yeah.
4, 5, 6, 7.
My question, I thought I heard you say something, and maybe it just went over my head, but did you say resell the lots to make more money, or are we going to put attainable housing on these lots?
Okay. The goal of the board is to resell the lots to development with conditions to assure that they'll have attainable housing on it.
Okay. So you'll have deed restrictions on there
Exactly.
to say
That you
that.
make profit
Some
off the sale of
percentage
each
of-
lot.
But and we're not looking at a whole lot, but there's certain costs that are potential and real, either to the county or to the board. That it's not. We're not looking at it as a profit-making deal. Is because we're if these are 60% of a comp on it. In the discussion with potential developers, we're talking about $5,000 or $6,000 in ultimately what may be a $200,000 house. So it's a lot of intent, but it also gives us a certain degree of
I
control.
just didn't want to lose the concept that whatever's going to be put on this lot is affordable to a starting
Yeah.
family and I don't mean
Yeah.
anybody who doesn't have the means to buy the average house in this community. That's all. I don't
Yeah.
really care whether you build it, you have Habitat for Humanity build it, or you put restrictions on whoever buys it to build something.
Right now, even though we have discussed the potential of getting into the management business and stuff like that, we don't want to take that on right now unless it can be, relatively speaking, a self-supporting situation. There's certainly some potential, but as another group of volunteers, we're not ready to take that on.
It's affordable housing and low income housing. You're trying to go a notch above
Correct.
the bottom.
Well, and the language
make
is
it clear.
attainable housing. It's not low
Right,
income
that's
housing.
what I'm trying to-
Attainable
It's
housing.
not
Well.
subsidized.
Not subsidized, not section.
Okay, so is it
Section
attainable or is it low?
It's attainable housing. That's
That's a notch above.
I would suggest in your leisure time before you go to bed at night, read the assessment that's specific. It gets rather specific as to Custer County initiatives and wages that our teachers realize,
Right.
wages our deputy sheriffs realize. Almost to a detail I was rather surprised at, because there is an identified delta. And then when you talk about the vocabulary of 30% of the mean wages, there's a vocabulary there that most of us aren't all that familiar with. But
The reason I asked the question was then in your effort to resell it and ensure that there's a certain percentage, what is that percentage of attainable housing for people with the income that we've been talking about can afford? How do you handle that? And
it's going to be based on restrictions on the purchase, and something that
well, I know, but who sets that, Charles?
We do.
You do, because you're the quote owner now.
You're
You're acting as our agent.
Yes.
So I'm just asking.
And what we're
Custer County would be the owner
Right.
Yes.
of the property.
Right. Because I don't know that there's any
So
precedence
is there
otherwise.
what is the magic number to make it
Well,
meet
that-
some requirement for attainable housing?
Well, like I say, there's different qualifications, and we're polling with some experience that some of the other areas have. Some of them put a condition that they could only increase the price by X percent on an annual basis and stuff like
For a
that.
certain number of the lots or for all the lots?
All of the lots.
So they're all attainable housing.
That's our goal.
I thought you said, well, I know, but he said a minute ago you're going to resell it and to make some money, what you said.
Well,
And
That's not the purpose of
I know,
reselling
no,
it.
right.
though,
no, the reselling is to put the
move
funds
it into
back
a-
into the,
Okay,
some
so
more
I
of
was
the
looking
same
at
funding.
if you're going to try to get some developer to say, if I can make a buck, I'll build a house, 1 out of 5 houses will be something different than just a low-income house or.
Well, they're not low income.
I don't mean
No.
attainable income.
And we played a lot of games with the name of our board as well as
Right.
that. And in some circles, I was rather surprised that in the housing study, they defined attainable housing. Because, you know, our discussions a year or so ago, it was kind of, is there a definition?
So we've been futzing around with this, that's my legal term, for an awful long time. You've heard me scream, maybe not real loud. We got the money, let's get this thing on the move. We finally have an opportunity. The Board of Attainable Housing is make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners on what to do. I support that. I would like to move that the county offer Colorado College $36,000 to purchase 9 lots. Is that right?
No,
Lots
Well,
1 through
12.
12, block 97
One, yeah.
in Silver Cliff.
In Silver Cliff, and retain a first right of refusal at the same price for the remaining lots.
Yes.
Okay, and with respect, sir, let's let's delineate what those other lots are in your motion. Okay, I'll give them to you, yeah. So it would be blocks 9, 10, and 11 in block 88, and blocks 3, 4, 7, and 8 in block 93.
It's exactly what I was
I
going to
thought
say.
it was, and I interrupted you. I know if I'd have been quiet, you'd have said that, but
I'll second it as soon as you figure it out.
3, 4, 7,
You can
and 8
appreciate our problem in trying to figure out how big the lots are.
in block 93,
Who owns them now?
Colorado College.
All of them?
Yeah.
He said
So
the remaining
9
lots.
through 11 and 88, 3, 4, 7, and 8 in 93, and 1 through 12 and 97.
Okay.
Okay. I'll second the motion. It's moved and seconded to write an offer to Colorado College to purchase lots 1 through 12 in block 97 for $36,000, and to include a right of first refusal to purchase lots 9, 10, and 11 in block 88, and lots 3, 4, 7, and 8 in block 93. Discussion.
Okay, just a quick question. Alpamar, why didn't we go for all the lots? Was there-
We didn't,
Didn't have the money.
$40,000 is all the money we had.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Didn't have the money.
And we wanted,
Because I've been out of that
I
league.
understand.
Can I see the map of the ones?
Yeah.
So that's a roughly half? Is that what it turns out to be?
Well,
No, it's more than,
It's more
yeah.
than half.
Is the name of the subdivision Town of Silver Cliff, and what's actually the name of the
Looks like it's in the middle of Silver Cliff.
Town
Should be Silver Cliff.
Town
Let
of
me.
Silver Cliff?
Yeah, First and Fleetwood is right in the middle of
Okay.
residential area, out of just off.
actually,
Town of Silver Cliff.
as a
yes.
point of
Alex,
clarification and editorially, those are all
see the map?
No,
zoned
no, I just need.
for
the
multifamily
name of this.
to a maximum of 6-unit deals.
Or you
Which-
can have condos in there.
Well, to the extent that it would take 2 50 by 100 lots to build a 6-unit deal, but that's kind of gets in the details. But
Yeah, so my discussion would be this, that I started out kind of sitting in those attainable housing meetings and then got derailed, and so I've been a little out of the loop myself. I'm very interested in these terms and conditions when the time comes, because I have yet to find anybody in this county that'll stick a stake in the ground and say, this is what attainable housing is. This is the definition of attainable housing. And it comes down to a dollar amount.
I would
So
suggest,
now that we've got this housing study,
and that is the
I've
first time
poured-
I've seen it for attainable housing
and I
identified.
poured through that, and I thought, okay, well, maybe we're getting closer to saying an attainable house through the Attainable Housing Board is this dollar amount. No questions asked. And if you can't do it for that, then we're not in the attainable housing business. Now that's where I'm coming from.
Well, the good thing is, and in the report that we've just received, and I've just read through it once, but the good news is it directly addresses our teachers and our deputy sheriffs, and it basically shows the range that those people hopefully can afford, assuming normal standards. And talking to the contractors, they generally talk about houses, with utilities and everything. And by the way, these lots already have Round Mountain utilities and such. Is that they hit right in that upper range.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at, is if we sell these lots to a developer without terms and conditions, and I say we, I mean attainable housing, well, and the county, because we own the lots, we've lost all of it.
Yeah, no.
It just becomes another real estate transaction. So I believe we have to put some restrictions on there, because a developer, I mean, we've seen it in Silver Cliff, 3 brand new units hit the market over $200,000. That's not attainable housing.
Well, it is, in fact. If they're just slightly over.
Well, it either is or it isn't,
Yeah.
see? And I want to get to the black and white.
Yeah, again, I would digest the report, and we'll have a reschedule opportunity with the consultants. They were based in Denver, and they were supposed to give a briefing in Salida yesterday, and then come down and brief us. So I agree, it's an education process on all of it, and that is one of the big concerns. And Maddie and Mike Liebman are subtasked to identify at least candidate terms and conditions that we can put on sale, and realizing that's a pacing item on our being able to actually offer them for sale.
Because I'll tell you, I'm going to be very critical when we sit down to look at a real estate contract with a developer. If it doesn't reek of attainable housing, I'm not going to support it.
Well, have trust in your board.
Well, I've asked the board numerous times, give me a figure for what attainable housing is, and nobody's been able to do that.
Sounds like it's 200 grand.
It's a little over.
That's what he's saying.
And in this report, it quantifies some of the challenges we have, being where we are, as it relates to getting supplies up here, getting labor, and what it costs to build, and part of the deal is, and it's to the developer standpoint, there's some cost that they don't control that they're burdened with, and it's tap fees for Round Mountain.
I was going to ask, let me ask a question about that. What is the restrictions? Are we flexible enough to be able to put a condo on there with 6 families in there on one tap, or Round Mountain?
Not under the new ground rules.
I was just wondering what the So you're restricted to single unit housing, family houses?
No, it's just that if you have multi-house, you have more than one tap.
Right.
Okay, that's what. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's possible, because across the street are those houses, the rental property, really nice. They're 2-bedroom houses. They're renting for $600 a month, and they're very nice, and they're perfect for first families. Seems to me those would probably be able to be built for $300,000 for the pair. I just want, that's sort of my estimate looking at it. So I just want to make sure, like what Tom's saying, if we restrict it, you don't want to restrict ourselves out of the market, and we end up with a piece of property not doing it.
I don't think that's a risk with other activities that's happening. In fact, we had...
Sounds like if we can do that, we're okay.
Yeah, and I'm chairman of the board of Round Mountain, and so we see...
You.
Actually, that's one of my easier jobs in this county. But
not fielding any questions.
But the point being is that with some of the local initiatives that they're sensitive to what we need to have as far as housing, and that was an issue that the board had initially. We aren't worrying about the retirees in the county and such like that. They bring their own resources and they'll build their house whatever they want. But to really look forward to, like I say, our starting teachers and our deputy sheriffs and an increase in the labor base, we need what we're identifying as attainable housing.
Right.
And I think we're on a plan that will support that. We did have one class that was supported through the housing area of the COG, identifying the laborious process necessary, and all of us that have bought houses realize how much paperwork it takes. But to introduce the idea of if somebody's going to buy a house, what they need to do in personal preparation and have expectations as far as credit scores and all of those kind of things. We will have another class that will sponsor on a 6-month interval from this last one. Those were the first such classes in Custer County in anybody's
So what's our
experience.
action now?
I'm asking for authority to and support to make a formal offer to Colorado College in accordance with their counteroffer and with the additional.
Motion on the table that
Okay.
hasn't been voted on.
Right.
Right.
Is the philosophy of the Attainable Housing Board to provide attainable housing for sale versus rent?
No. We would certainly encourage rental property, but currently none of the developers that we've identified and had communications with are interested in that long-term obligation. There is another option
Long-term obligation
of managing property.
of renting?
Yeah.
Okay, because I
Associated.
misunderstood your answer then.
Yeah, I'm confused.
Okay.
Maybe I
Well,
didn't ask the question right.
the-
Rental
Are
property
you
or
after
not?
rental or home sales? The Attainable Housing Board,
we're interested in selling the property so that it will support attainable housing. We are looking, there's another development, that particular lot that we're buying right now, and it was in yesterday's discussions, lends itself to multifamily, i.e. rental properties and such like that, just because of its size, opposed to the remaining lots, which by their separation and such
Separate residential.
will be separate residential. It lends itself. We're considering, and it's yet to be determined yet,
So it's a mix.
of possibly putting multifamily houses on that. That needs to be in coordination with the town of Silver Cliff
Correct.
because of their zoning and such like that. But the indications are they're in close enough proximity to other multifamily lodgings there in Silver Cliff such that it wouldn't upset their plans. And that's our deal. Our plan for next month would be to do a site visit and also initiate some conversations with their planning element and such to try to mature that. There is another thing that, and it gets into a whole nother realm, but we have been introduced via some friendly contacts in Pueblo. They were at a conference in California a week or so ago, and they had occasion to talk to some people that are interested in investments in under the new federal laws relating to opportunity zones. It was introduced to them about our broadband plans. When I looked at this particular organization's website, it also included that they invested in multifamily housing. So we've had an introductory conference call with representatives of that fund, and we raised both issues and we introduced our various programs.
Do you
And-
know the scope of the?
And there's possibility that that we could get basically out-of-state investment into some multifamily, and with the idea that, yes, from a board standpoint, we would sell the properties with terms and conditions that would lend themselves to that, but then that could put it into organizations that could fund and subsequently, and obviously we've got property management people here in the community. So that's an evolving thought process, and we realize the major developments that CJ's got and the Hagas have got, their emphasis for the most part is on single family homes. that does not satisfy the deficits that's identified in the housing study that we need for rental properties and such like that. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think we're on the verge of going down a road that all of these discussions are going to be germane. It may not be to this specific motion, Commissioner Prince, but we're talking about getting in the real estate business here.
well, right now we're trying, without a more formal organization and without some supporting funds, we're trying to stay out of that, but we can see that there might be opportunities where it would be smart.
Well, I mean, we're in it. If we buy and sell, we're in the real estate business. There's no question about it.
There is another thing, and I don't know whether CCI has briefed you all on it or not, but I know Steve Laswell and I went to a housing meeting in Pueblo several months ago now. There's a plan from the state level within the next 2 years to be infusing significant funds for housing because it's realized as being a deficit for the whole state.
Okay, well, yes, sir.
Of course, we're in the real estate business. If not, we wouldn't be in the affordable housing business. If we're not going to be in the real estate business, let's disband the affordable housing committee and say, have at it, folks. You know, if you can afford to live here, live here. If you can't, live somewhere else. That is the business that we're in.
I don't agree with that. The Affordable Housing Board could be in the business of finding outside funds to come do this stuff. That could be your charge, right? I see they could function without buying and selling property.
I don't know how that really could work if we're going to be, we, the Attainable Housing Committee, is going to find housing for, I'm going to call it starter folks, although it could be older folks, who don't have the means to buy the average cost of a house here. I mean, the only other thing you could do is go twist arms and
Right.
say, sell it for less.
Well,
So
or
I mean, this discussion's been going on for an awful long time. This is what attainable housing, I've been intimately involved with attainable housing since they started yesterday.
A year
I was
ago.
so disappointed that I
Right.
couldn't get in there.
Some of us started this with the schools initiative, 3 or 4 years
but the
ago.
Attainable Housing Board, I sat right here when we voted on it
Yeah.
a year ago.
On spending money to buy property for attainable housing. Yes.
I don't think at that stage we had any money.
We started talking with Colorado College, how long ago?
I started the conversation,
Yeah,
Jay.
but we didn't have any money until Elpamar gave us
Right, we didn't have any
$40,000.
money. But
Correct.
I'm just saying, I don't think, in my view, attainable housing's job is to just buy and sell property to make attainable housing happen. I think the attainable housing should also go out and look for outside money or other sources. That's what COG's all about.
No, I was going to ask, that's a very good point, because if that land was valuable and there was money in making affordable housing for everybody, it would be done. If all we're going to be is somebody that gets the land together, we're still looking for the same buyers. The only advantage we have that I see is that it's a lot easier for county government to go after grants to subsidize it so that you can get it, somebody interested in building it is my view. I don't know, otherwise Tom's got a good point. I don't want to sit here and just own land.
Well,
You
I'm not
can't
saying
sell.
I'm against. I'm going to vote for this motion. I'm not saying that. I'm
I'm
just
not
saying
you
let's
are.
call
I'm
it
just
what it
making
is.
a point.
I don't think there's any grant money other than this El Pomar stuff that we're looking at right now that's germane to this motion of whether or not we buy this property, right?
Correct.
I'm all about buying this property. Don't misread me. But I hope the Affordable or Attainable Housing Board it doesn't just become an entity that goes out and tries to buy property and turns around and sells it to a developer in the hopes that we end up in an attainable housing
Right.
thing. I don't buy that.
I think if you'll remember back as far as 2 years ago, the first thing we were looking at, and we kind of stumbled into it, is that we realized that the county owns some property in Silver
Right.
Cliff.
Right.
We stumbled into the fact that Colorado College owns some property there. There's some that's probably a little more complicated in West Cliff, and that our emphasis was on the two towns primarily to try to capitalize on that because we have an economically a need like most of the state does.
Closer to work is why the towns are important.
And I put my economic development hat on. We can't bring businesses in here if we don't have housing for people. And it was interesting, some of the discussions we had with one of the new folks to our town is that in some of the communities, if somebody wants to bring in a business with a certain level of employment, there's a tag to it that they need to
I want to be
address
polite
part of
here,
it.
Charles. I think we're all in agreement. And Tom brought up a good point. We've got like 15 minutes, and 3 other people have been sitting here all meeting, and we're discussing things that I think we need to get into once we get the deal. If we're all in agreement, we're going to buy it.
Well, that's the whole point of this discussion,
Right.
to decide whether or not you're going
Right.
to support getting in the real estate market. That's all there is. Buying the land and trying to resell it, correct? That's what
With
the
the immediate
intent of
funds
this
in.
motion is,
Yes.
for $36,000.
That's right.
So I think we were out in the weeds a little bit, but
Well, I think it falls into, we've been doing things, again, y'all haven't necessarily been part of,
Right.
Right.
and there's other things happening, and this is a moving target, but just to try to maintain the visibility and apparent visibility on what we're doing. So,
And we've got the grant money to cover it. Maybe.
no.
no, we've got it.
$40,000.
It's in the
So
bank.
we're taking 36.
Further discussion? Counselor, do you happen to know what fund that money went into? I do not.
I don't, I guess I'd have to.
I'm
check.
assuming it's in
Virginia.
general fund, but
Yeah, I
it
don't know.
should be.
I think she
probably
set it.
capital
She
improvement.
set it apart.
So, public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of purchasing the aforementioned lots in Silver Cliff 1 through 12 in Block 97, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay.
Hang on a second.
We've gone past that point, sir. All in favor?
You did not portray appropriately what the motion was.
Well, I can restate the entire motion, sorry.
Because it did say for attainable housing only. And that is important to be part of what I voted.
Okay. So, would you read the motion, ma'am?
What I have is to write a letter to Colorado College to offer to purchase lots 1 through 12, Block 97, Town of Silver Cliff, for $36,000, and to have a right of first refusal for lots 9 through 11, Block 88, and lots 3, 4, 7, and 8, Block 93, Town of Silver Cliff.
At the same price.
At the same
At the
price,
same
yeah. And I guess I was just assuming, I made some assumptions and I apologize. So, it's not writing a letter, so that's not correct. We're gonna offer a contract, provide them with a written contract, correct?
Make an
Purchase,
offer.
purchase agreement.
Well, I want to make an offer first, and if they agree, then we'll put it in
Then
writing
you
as
put
a
it
formal
in
contract.
Contract.
So, would be a letter?
It would be a letter
Okay, then I
saying
stand
this is our
corrected.
proposal
An
to
offer.
purchase.
Okay.
It's, I mean, that's how I would prefer to do it, is just do it by letter, and if they agree, then we'll we're not financing it, it's just a straight cash
there a-
deal.
Is
So
there a
we could
use or
just-
lose on the grant? Right, there is, right? Time warning.
Because, I mean, we can just go ahead and I can prepare the deed and we can do the purchase, we don't need to really have a contract on this. It's a
But
binding.
it will start with a letter. You're
Yeah,
gonna-
and if they,
you're gonna write a
and
letter.
essentially it was their offer to us, but I'll put it, but they want a formal offer from.
Right. I thought we were gonna write them a contract and send it to them. I thought we'd gone past the proposal part, but if you're good
Well,
with that,
No,
I'm
and
fine.
I mean, the
I
letter
defer
can just
to-
say that we accept, what they're proposing, which would essentially be a contract, then because the email that was sent to Charles is their offer, even though they word it in a sense, I'm trying to find it, that we would consider, actually, this is an offer to us, the way I read this email, we're just accepting their offer. Yeah, and
We're accepting the offer.
I can actually
Then you can
prepare
work
the
the
deed
deed out.
also for them to, do we, Is there any reason we need title insurance on this? It's their obligation to, there's gonna need to be title insurance for financing down the road, so we should have them do it now.
I think that'd be appropriate.
Right. So I should put all that in, that we would, pay them $36,000 a cash purchase for these lots. There shouldn't be any costs other than title insurance. That's some minor recording fees and things like that, but those are generally all the obligation of the seller, and I would put that in there too. Title insurance, tax, the statement from the assessor's office regarding taxes and everything.
So to Jay's point, the wording would be enter into a contract or write them a letter.
Letter of
Letter of
acceptance.
acceptance, that's what
Yeah, I would accept that and say, we agree and we have a contract. I just put it in the letter. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything specific as long as there's an offer.
But for the sake of the motion, the way the motion's gonna be written in the minutes.
Okay, let's say it's a letter of acceptance of their offer, which creates a
To
contract.
purchase that. We're good, Ms. Kell?
Yep.
As you had it.
And I will inform them that the board has reviewed their counteroffer.
Let's get it going here,
that
guys.
It has been accepted, and there will be an official correspondence between the county and the
Reporting back to your board. Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Well,
hear
I
the
will
first part.
report back to my contact at
Oh,
Colorado
yeah, okay,
College
yeah.
that we've processed it
Right.
and we're in
Okay.
the process of consummating the deal.
And I will send an email to Lori. Is this Lori Seegers, the one you've been dealing with? I'll send her an email also confirming this, that you have been authorized by the Board of County Commissioners to accept the offer they extended in this message, and that I will prepare a formal deed for their consideration. I'll send you a copy of that, and I'll send
Please.
copies to three of you as well.
For the record then, we're gonna vote again, so there's no misunderstanding. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No, you're fine. Aye, opposed nay, motion carried. Yeah, I was going under the assumption that we all knew what we were voting on, but that's not a good way to run business, so I apologize. I see in this study, average teacher wage is $56,550. I want you to go poll that school and see how you come out of there.
I was going to say, I was
Because I
rather
guarantee you that
surprised.
is not right.
A whole lot less.
Can I ask a
You
question?
may,
So, have you talked to any teachers, or, because my daughter's a teacher, and $200,000 house for her right now would be a stretch. And the sheriff's deputies make less than the teachers do.
And that's what the report indicates. When we have an opportunity, I know there was the consultants that support this study, and we tried to collaborate with contacts in both the school and the sheriff's office to have first contact on that. They had difficulty finding people to talk to. I think when we get the report from the consultants, questions need to be asked like that, as you know, and a sanity check, maybe with our new administration and stuff like that, to further qualify those numbers.
yeah, I mean, it's one thing for this study to tell these teachers what they can afford to spend on housing. It's another thing to go to these teachers and say, what can you afford? That's
Well-
two different things.
Well, and part of the thing is understanding the numbers that they put down. They do not include utilities.
Right.
That's just P&I.
Right.
And taxes and,
Yeah, I mean, just basic home ownership.
Right.
Well,
And
we
so,
have another issue too, I think, and that's people don't necessarily want to stay here. They come here for their first assignment, and
that's why we need
lifestyle
rental,
is
that's
not
why we
theirs.
need rental property.
So we
is
got
one.
issues.
Because
Because,
they had to buy. It might drive the stake in the ground a little deeper. So,
well, it's,
guess what the national average for a teacher salary is? Found this out yesterday.
I
Some
heard it
research.
recently.
$65,000 a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, I just heard it.
Being led by
That's
the
insane.
cities again.
Absolutely
and they
insane.
make
Thank
half
you.
of that here.
Thank you guys for your support.
Yeah, at all.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it.
Broad banditos, get out of here.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for your work.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Work going on here.
Next item on the agenda is consideration of a culvert request by a citizen, Mr. Hyde. is here to present that.
I just wish they would hit me. I couldn't do my driveway. But I was glad to see it when I got into my driveway.
Oh, good.
Mr. Gary, you're up, sir.
Oh. Kara, can you call Jackie?
Yes, thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Good.
Apologize for the delay.
Oh, it's okay.
You not running any of those snow plows because you're getting some pretty good press.
I was yesterday.
Did you?
We're down. I got one of my guys that resigned here about 7 or 8 weeks ago. He plowed one of the snow routes, and we don't have a guy that's got enough experience to be doing that.
Trusting to
Yeah, because you actually need to get a lot of hours in the blade before you start doing that.
Okay, to the agenda.
Okay.
So culvert request, lot 35, Muirfield Drive. What is your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Sorry.
Well, I talked to Ed this morning about that,
Ed,
the property owner,
okay,
and kind of got his take on it. And it's more of a matter of convenience than anything to come off Copper Gulch. And I can understand his situation. You know, if I bought a piece of property and I felt like I wanted the entrance off of Copper Gulch versus the subdivision, you know, try and lobby for it to come off of Copper Gulch. So, as far as our access permit, the way it's worded, I mean, I'm not sure if I agree with this or think that it even ought to be in there, honestly.
okay, we
And I
got
can-
that electronically, but yeah.
I can kind of understand why it's in there, and I know the Road and Bridge Department in the past, and I can see this too, they try and limit the number of accesses going onto a parcel. And the reason for that is it's another obstacle that the Road and Bridge Department has to deal with, especially this time of year when you're doing snow removal, and this is one of the reasons right here, and this is one of the reasons we like to go out and dictate where they're at, where they're located, and different things of that nature. Right now, this piece of property is got about a 3 or 4 foot rise going up to the property off of Copper Gulch.
Rise from the level of the road or from the bottom of the ditch?
Well, actually, it's about 3 foot from the crown of the road or the shoulder of the road up to the property. Well, when we go out and do snow removal, if somebody goes in there and they fills that ditch in for that access and leaves it at that type of an angle without doing it more like this, cutting the property down a little bit, which he'd have to do. In fact, he told me that. There's been individuals that haven't done that in the past before we started.
You can control it.
Yeah, we can now, but at one point in time we weren't able to before we come up with something like this. And what happens is if we're out cleaning snow and it's dark and that driveway access is frozen, well, yeah, and then we damage our equipment or...
Right.
So anyway, he's assured me that if he was allowed to put that in, he would taper that back so that that wouldn't be...
You have to cut into his place and go up.
Yeah, he would, yeah. But he did tell me that he would cut that back about 40 feet in order to make this more level with the plane of our road so that it's not a...
What's your recommendation for us?
On this? Well, it's a gray area. I
Not
mean,
quite that simple, huh?
it's really not that simple, especially when it's in black and white right there, what's allowed and not allowed. So,
Yeah, it is. You're right. It is gray.
mhm.
One entrance is all he's got. And if he had a issue, to me, fire, and you gotta get in, if it's his barn, it's a little hard. If it's the other way around, it's hard. So.
Pardon me?
Did we do this?
No, we referred it back.
We just asked Gary to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct, I remember.
The subdivision regulations basically state the same thing, their access, and I didn't bring it with me, but is
You
there...
have to have ingress and egress. And you have to have your driveway you have to have more than one. You have to have we recommend 2 driveways if you have a large area, because we want fire equipment to be able to use one area while we're evacuating another.
But it's from the subdivision, it's not from a county road. And access to the individual lots are from the...
Correct, but if, like, we require if you're coming on a county road to at least have a road permit from Road and Bridge. But what if can I just comment that if I owned a large area of property and I have an access to my first 40, I want to go to the back of my other property, so I don't know why you would limit access points for a safety reason, plus why? If you're not taking care of the culverts, if you had a policy that the county road and bridge is not responsible for the culvert, and you had some way to make the homeowners give them a nasty gram stating that they have to clean their own culvert, then why would you limit someone to a driveway?
Well, I think the reason it got limited is because of trying to eliminate the need to maintain a culvert.
That doesn't, one size doesn't fit all though, Gary, because the small lots I can understand.
Well, I agree with that
You got
too.
a ranch or you got 35 acres, you're not gonna tell him you can only have 2 one-way.
Well, I agree with that too. If I had a 160-acre parcel, a quarter of a section, I wouldn't want to be limited to 2 accesses on that. So,
That's not a subdivision either.
No.
We're talking about
Right,
subdivision.
Largest piece of property in the subdivision, Custer County, is gonna be 35 acres, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yes.
and this guy has only one entrance on his subdivision.
So this, coming off the subdivisions, did that stem from the zoning office that they come off of, or have their accesses from the subdivision road? Is that where that came from? Or?
The subdivision regs,
Yeah.
No, he's asking that statement.
Oh, I
I
just
guess
wondered.
I've never seen the statement.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's their policy, the road and bridge policy here.
Properties accessible.
Yeah,
from
but
the
I just
subdivision
wondered if it
road must be
migrated
accessed
from the
the
zoning
subdivision
office.
Well,
It's maybe
unless-
the wording came from the zoning office of
I don't
zoning.
know which came first, actually.
I don't know.
Chicken.
The subdivision regulations or this policy. I don't know which was first.
No, I just wondered if the zoning
No, I
office.
don't know where that
Oh,
came
okay.
from, but I really do believe that a policy needs to be written, but I don't know where you've taken on cleaning out everybody's culvert.
Well, I don't know when that.
Well, I don't think the county cleans everybody's culverts. I think the county cleans culverts that need to be cleaned to prevent damage
When
to
they're
county
asked to do
roads.
it.
Correct?
There are
Well,
separate
actually-
subdivision regulations that are more specific
Okay.
than this.
Actually, Tom, it's not even that dictates which ones get cleaned out. It's every culvert that gets filled that needs to be cleaned out, whether it poses a risk to the county road or not.
You took that
We're-
on. Somebody took it on
Well,
for you. I know that.
I
Road and
wish
Bridge
we wouldn't
is
have,
doing it,
honestly.
but
But
There's no
I
reason
guess-
why you can't change that, or why you can't look at each individual request on its merits and decide. It's your policy.
But back to
But we
your
need
question,
to-
Tom,
we
I
need to
honestly
know.
wouldn't have a problem with coming off copper.
Yeah, I went up there and interestingly enough, I was in my wife's little Subaru car, and there was, after our first snow, I drove down Muirfield Drive and I drove down to his barn site. I can't buy into the fact that it's out of necessity, because he could certainly drive down that driveway to his barn, turn a horse trailer and a pickup around and drive back out. I don't see that, and I don't think he's claiming that, is he?
No, he told
That
me.
he has to have it because,
Well, no. In fact, he told me. I said, well, basically, it's a matter of it'd be more convenient to come off copper, wouldn't it?
Right.
And he said, yeah, because I've got crews coming in there to build the home, the barn, and things like that. And I've got a motor home. I want to park in the barn. I'd rather shorten the drive,
Right.
not snake it through this other area.
Right.
Just come off of copper and have a straight shot. So convenient.
well, to me, there's a couple things here. One, I would guess in most county governments, we would look at that document and there'd be a reference line at the bottom of it to a policy. And I think to Jackie's point, I just think it brings to the surface another another, because there's more than one that's come across this desk, need for written policies adopted by the county to say this is how we're going to operate. There's not a date when that was enacted. It's just been a general thing. So I will certainly act on your recommendation today, but I also believe an unintended consequence of this is that we need to deal with this from a policy standpoint.
Right, because there's two impacts. One is cost, and the county's if you took it on, our road budget gotta cover it, and you've got to make that part of your budget, clean culverts. Otherwise, you put a policy in that says, fine, you can have as many as you want, free country, but you have to build the right approach so you're not damaging our equipment, and you have to clean it if that's required.
Well, without any kind of policy,
you can't do it unless we get a policy.
I can put 3 more entrances in, and
Right.
what are they going to do about it?
Right, and then that comes back to here, and us trying to make a fair and equitable decision based on what? My opinion of this guy, or the fact that Bill's involved with this guy, or that Jay's, that's a poor way to run business.
Right.
So I just think eventually we can start with this. There's probably 100 other things we need to look at the county level, not necessarily road and bridge. But man, this should be cited in policy somewhere. So we all...
You ought to be able to look at maybe the other counties. I don't know. Do other counties have a policy? You can do some research, and if you want to bring a suggestion to it, we can entertain it.
Well, I mentioned to Sherry this morning about getting a hold of some of our counties that have a similar terrain that we've got, with the potential.
In some areas.
Well, and see what they're doing on driveway culverts and things like that. See if the county's cleaning them and things like that. So anyway,
or if they're putting them, it might be surprised. Maybe they're buying them. You better be careful.
Well, there's certainly an opportunity now for 3 more requests to end up either on your desk or our desk, because it's not going to be a secret. These neighbors can say, oh, hell, I'd much rather come off of.
Well, and there has been too, and that's one thing that was mentioned to me. If we allow this one, then 2 other are going to have an argument.
But you got to come up with the criteria that says you can or you can't be based on X, Y, and Z, whether it's safety, whether it's convenience, or whether it's whatever. Or whether there's a certain size lot, it's a free country. What kind of county are we?
And this unusual circumstances.
Well,
what
is it? That's
pretty vague.
It is pretty vague.
I don't see any unusual circumstances.
We don't.
Over there.
But once again,
that's me.
Yeah, I don't either. And you're right. We're going to open up the door for several more entrances.
You could do it by acreage. Maybe. You could also do it because the assessor, I won't issue a zoning permit unless you have an address, and I need to know where your driveway is. So your main driveway, you have to state that, has to be the one that the assessor uses. That's your main driveway. If you're going to put a secondary driveway in, then you should have a form that the road and bridge says this is a secondary driveway, and you maintain it.
Right. But that's your policy.
Culvert and everything. But I don't see, you could do it by acreage, but that's not fair either. But I would love to see ingress and egress, because you get a house going, a fire going in a home, and there's one driveway, and we got emergency vehicles running into that house, and we're trying to get the animals out and stuff. It's a game.
And I don't know that you could do that with this property off of the highway, because of the way it drops down off that road, and then the pad where he's going to put his home drops down.
He's only got like a 35-foot wide, whatever it is. This piece right here, where is it? That's only a few feet. That's not very big.
Well, I did notice that. You're right. I did notice that there's not room for an ingress and
he doesn't own this property right here.
He's just got this.
No, but he could make this driveway come clear out here if he wanted to.
Well, sure, but his only way in there, Tom, is through that little portal right there.
Yeah, I don't.
I guess I'm
because,
not following.
Well, the property butts right up against this road, and because of that, he doesn't own any of this.
None of this property.
He can access it right here.
Right here.
I think he can access it there, but not over here.
Right. His property line is from here to here. His road, it hits the road is right here. That's his.
I drove off of Muirfield Drive
This is
and
it.
went right
This is-
here.
No.
I did too.
No.
Yes,
Here's
I did.
Muirfield, Tom.
Doesn't
Here's
matter. I'm
Muirfield.
telling you what I did. I drove
Here's
right
the
through
barn.
here, straight down. I did not come down here to access his property.
You had to.
Nope.
Well, then
Have
you
you
didn't come. Yeah, I've been there.
I know you've been there. I'm
But
just saying.
but I'm just saying this is a berm. If you look at it, they've already cut this down. This is his property line up here.
Which is north.
No, this is north.
This is north, right?
Yeah, when
Here's
I come
Copper
over,
Gulch. Here's the entrance that he's talking about, and there's his only ingress right there. This is somebody else's ground.
I don't know what that is. Where
Highway
is
69 is right here.
yeah, here's Copper here.
Okay,
and-
that's what I was looking for.
Copper Gulch is right there, and you can drive straight down here.
Okay, got you. Yeah, I apologize. I thought this was.
No.
Yeah,
I guess
I get you.
because of what Jackie was saying,
This is his driveway.
His driveway's right on this fence line, right?
in order to get him an ingress and egress, then I don't believe you can do it over here because of
And
what.
even if you did it there, you're still one entrance in right here. But you could theoretically, if you could.
But I don't see hanging this argument on ingress and egress. I mean,
Really?
look how many subdivisions there are. Look at Tanglewood.
Yeah.
Yeah, geez.
In an ideal world, absolutely. But for crying out loud,
Now we got two.
to what?
Two accesses into Tanglewood. We only had one, but now we have two so they can get out of there in case of a fire. Didn't Cindy do that? With her fire mitigation stuff and find a way that we can get Tanglewood out of there?
But that's the sins of the past. We got to talk from here forward, and a policy needs to be made. And there's exceptions to every rule, and right now we only got one rule that doesn't.
So this is north here, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Sorry.
north.
I don't know what.
Town West Cliff's over here. 69 comes right by here. Copper Gulch goes on 69, and so does this driveway.
Yeah, I was turned around. Sorry.
This little driveway
So
here,
here's-
69. I'm sorry.
Yeah, here's his drive right there.
Yeah.
And it looked to me like his pad site for his barn is sitting clear back here.
It is, and he did tell me this morning that they
tried to-
stopped short on that pad because it was contingent on whether or not
Where that
he was
barn
going to
gets
be able
located.
to, have access here. So, but here's two ways to look at it. Once again, I said earlier I didn't have a problem with it, but based on what we've got written here, he doesn't. It's not allowable based on how we've got this
Only
type of.
by whoever owns the policy. It's just like we do. Somebody comes in with an exception, and we either agree or we don't agree to approve it.
Yeah. Well, I
Well,
mean,
it's up to you right now. Or you throw the ball onto our court and we'll vote on it, but that's your policy.
I wouldn't mind having another opinion on it. Honestly.
You got any input?
I'm very twisted on this. I mean, I remember the map very clearly. And the reason why I went back to Gary and said, Gary, what's your opinion is because you're the expert. My feeling is, if a person needs an additional egress and ingress to their property and it's reasonable, I'm having a hard time saying I don't agree with that. I mean, but we ought to have a policy. I mean, we ought to decide. And if
He's agreed to pay for everything to make it compliant.
But without a policy, which is where we're at,
Right, we just need it, we make a decision every single time, so.
Right, I don't want to do that.
Can I interject one thing? Because we need to look at the subdivision regulations. If that's absolute, then there needs to be a waiver granted on this, I think, to allow this access.
So according to what you're saying, Clint, is that there may be some subdivision rules in place that make
Subdivision regulations
regulations.
cover this, as far as driveways and I don't know if it's,
You have a regulation for the golf course.
Yes, we probably
Subdivision.
do because it's a PUD.
which you can't, we're
And
trying to
I
mix
would
apple and
look-
So
oranges
that's,
there.
it's
but-
not a subdivision.
But it is basically, I will try to find it. You're correct, I'm sorry. It's a subdivision within a PUD. So we got two things going on there with the golf course. But now it turned into a home and stuff, so that lays another layer on it. But from experience, you can't enforce anything unless you have a written policy with a date and with proof that the commissioners agreed to it at the time.
So in other words, he could do this and we couldn't do.
Nope.
Well, the subdivision regulations have a date on them when they were approved, and if they were,
I'll go get them.
okay.
Thank you. I'm trying to look them up, but I'm struggling.
Be easier for her to get
Yeah, I
them.
had a copy, but I didn't bring it with me.
And Roger thought we had.
But if it was in 1973 or whatever.
Well, I
it
sure
was.
couldn't find it. Sherry and I looked for it. We couldn't find anything out there at the Road and Bridge Department.
All right.
Was
I'm gonna bring this up because I think it's pertinent. Your assistant supervisor certainly has an opinion about this.
Mhm.
You want to share that with us?
Yeah, his thoughts are, it clearly states in here that if there's a subdivision that you can access off of, that's where it needs to happen at. And that's what he's gone with from, well, ever since this was typed up. So his opinion is we need to not allow this to be on Copper Gulch. So,
Which in my book carries some weight, not because of who said that, but because of why he said that, his justifications. Which comes back to the sins of the past. We don't have a policy, so we end up going through this crap every time somebody wants to have, in this case, wants to have a culvert.
yeah, and if this was a policy, according to the policy, he doesn't get it off of Copper Gulch because he's got access off the subdivision, so he needs to use that.
Can't
So,
point to a reg that was ever agreed to.
So,
yeah, so.
If that's the piece of paper that you've used all along, why is that not a policy?
well, because it's probably never,
It may not be an official.
that's right.
policy.
It's probably never been adopted, and I say that only because it would be cited on that document.
Yeah, or
If
you
some
would be able to
prior
find it.
administration had adopted that into policy, it should say, according to policy C-6-19 or whatever, and we don't have that. And I don't think Roger told me he had no idea other than this document
That's what he
about
told me.
a policy, so.
Yeah, he didn't actually use the term policy, I don't think necessarily. He said that he had something to kind of back this up. In one of the filing cabinets, I had Sherry go through it, she couldn't find it. You know, it was one of those deals. But you know,
Okay, John Boss.
he's trying to be consistent with how we deal with these situations. So,
His approach. I appreciate
and I appreciate that too. So if we start varying from this, we lose our consistency, and then
it. We opened it.
Clint, what page you looking at there?
Is this the one, I mean, I don't remember looking at this page, I'm on page
Oh.
15 of the
Okay,
subdivision regulations.
I just went to roads.
okay.
And
There
then it
was,
says a street sign design, street.
there was something else that.
Don't have the PUD. Okay.
Service authority and a road and bridge department, street names shall not be duplicated within the county. I think you're back
What page you on?
That's on page 15.
Did you get that from the section?
Number, I'm just trying to track with you, Jackie.
E roads.
What number?
E,
That's a letter, what number?
Page number.
page number 15.
E what? 1
E.
through 6, under roads, 1 through 6.
Well, if you're gonna answer for
3.2.
That's what I'm asking you, what is it, 1 through 6? What number are you reading?
5.
Thank you.
That's what he wanted.
Easements and right-of-ways, the subdivision.
Yeah, that's just
This is just saying what the
Names and-
design of the roads,
of the signs.
Just major
Street
roads
names.
and how they,
comply.
in that subdivision, but let's, the subdivider shall meet the fire chief and fire inspector. If you wanted to add another layer to this,
For me,
you
go
could
through the fire
say,
department.
you're allowed to have another driveway if the fire chief
Maybe it's
agrees
a
to
requirement.
it.
Maybe there's a
Okay,
requirement to have.
but let me ask you a question then. This document we're looking at, Is this directed to the homeowner or is this directed to the developer?
Developer.
Okay, whole different ballgame, see? We're not talking about a developer.
No, but why couldn't you put the same thing?
Because I don't think it'd be fair. I mean, how can a potential landowner, this guy wants to buy this property, that's different than asking a developer to jump through all these hoops when this would already been in place if you're buying a piece of property. You see what I'm saying? To me, it's two different things.
It would have had the ability to have two entrances, an egress or ingress, or it could have a policy from the fire department has to make sure you got ingress, egress for fire, whatever.
Yes, let Bill finish and then I'll. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Why don't we ask the Planning and Zoning Commission to make a recommendation? Let's put this gentleman on hold until we get that. We'll vote on the policy. Whatever the policy is, it'll be a new policy. This gentleman either abide by it, whatever the commissioners approve. It needs to go to Planning and Zoning. They need to review it. They need to come to us and tell us what they think. I don't feel comfortable making that decision myself personally.
Can you start out, why don't we? I disagree with your assessment right there. I think this is a road and bridge thing.
I do too.
And I think that obviously falls under the county via the road and bridge.
Because they're the ones that are impacted potentially monetarily
But
with
if we're
road
going to
money.
modify subdivisions, then we need to get Planning and Zoning.
Yeah,
Sure
I don't
do,
think
but
we're
he
talking
needs to-
about
I think he
modifying
needs to make the
subdivision.
Do we have
recommendation.
a subdivision regulation that tells us they can or they cannot?
No. And that would be directed to the developer, correct, Jackie?
Correct.
Not an individual homeowner.
No, but let's not take my take on this is a piece of property, whether it's a developer or an individual, is a piece of property. I think that there has to be something that says, if I have 160 acres, I want to get to the back of it.
Nobody gonna deny that.
And if I have to come off a county road and I'm willing to maintain my own culvert, and you have the authority to fine me the road and bridge for not maintaining my culvert, then what's the big deal?
And it has to be designed to your specs in order to make it accessible.
But we're not talking about him maintaining his culvert here. And we're not talking about 160 acres. We're talking about less than 5 acres, actually.
You're thinking
Right.
from this point forward, we ought to have something like that in place, which I agree.
100%, but it doesn't help us today.
And I think today, in order to stay consistent, and we probably ought to stay with this, and what we've done in the past. I mean, I know that these culverts, these entrances, they've been put
Let me
in
point
for
out something along
decades,
that
probably.
point, Gary. What's to stop? Okay, you do that,
Mm-hmm.
and then we come up with a policy that says you can do X, Y, and Z with a certain size ground, whatever. What's to stop somebody from coming back and saying, I want a culvert? Nothing. They can request a waiver to what they already agreed to, or what was the requirement at the time, because we just changed it. So we're going to have to act on it one way or the other.
Well, it can't be retroactive. It's got to be from this point forward, this policy.
Right.
But at the time,
I don't
at this
agree.
point in time, we've got this to go by, so I think we probably ought to stay with it.
Yeah, I happen to agree with you on this particular situation. I got all kinds of problems going back to where Jackie's at. We need a policy, clearly, to me. But to me, this is a road and bridge issue. That's, if we were talking about a subdivision road, that's different. But we're not. We're talking about access from a county road to a guy's piece of property that happens to be in a subdivision.
What precedent have you set?
Well, we haven't said any yet.
No, I'm talking to Mr. Hyde.
By what?
Through this policy that you are you saying go by the policy because you've already set a precedent?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, what precedent? I'm not following what you're saying.
He's saying that they're gonna go back to this policy because they've already been going by this policy.
Okay.
So they've already set a precedent of what policy they've been using.
Well,
She's saying, what is the
precedent
policy?
necessity versus convenience.
Mm-hmm.
And who are you to say it's not a necessity when my house catch on fire? That's what bothers me. this whole thing. We don't limit septic tanks, we don't limit where you put your driveway. We don't say, no, you can't have your driveway here, but you can have it over here.
Oh,
We
does.
we sure do.
Sure they do. They're not gonna let you put a driveway anywhere you
You've
want.
got to, according to this, you've got to have at least, I think it's 200 or 300 feet visibility on each side, which in this case he does. But let me go back to that. If you put it on a blind curve, blind corner, you risk the general public.
Right.
You
when
risk
they're-
your life.
Exactly, because they're pulling out of a driveway and someone tops that hill and broadsides them.
I got
So
it.
we do limit actually where they go. And it's based on, a lot of it's based on safety.
But without it, we're back to without a policy,
Well,
Right.
You're making the call.
And we're not arguing with that.
yeah.
and who's interpreting it? I guess I just find it odd that it costs a lot to build a driveway plus buy the culvert, and if someone maintains it, I don't. Does it hard to plow? I agree.
It does create a hazard for the Road and Bridge Department, just like what I was explaining a while ago. If
Unless
it's
he
not
builds it
correctly, exactly. That's why we dictate
Right, and you
when
can
and
dictate
where.
that to him, and he's already agreed to that.
Well, that in this situation exactly, but
Do you have standards on how to install the culvert?
correct.
Yeah, 6 inches of
And
fill
is that a
dirt.
policy?
Well, there's no policy, Jackie.
That's-
Quit hammering him about
Yeah,
that.
we
There
don't-
isn't a policy.
We don't have a policy in place,
I want to hit Mr. Flower. Would you?
but
The homeowner has to pay for the culvert, correct?
yes,
Plus the $75 permit fee.
correct. Yes.
And then up to a $300 fine if it's not installed correctly. I believe that's,
Well, the $300 fine, I think, is because
without a proper
With-
permit.
yeah, without-
Sorry, not
without
getting-
whether
more
it's
to get it
right or
back.
wrong, it's whether.
But is
you-
that in the zoning resolution, or is that
No,
just in
that's
this
this
document?
document, and
Well,
that
that's
is not a
That's not
policy.
enforceable then.
exactly it's.
None of that's in
It would be once the homeowner signs it, I'm assuming, and agrees to the terms and conditions.
I'm still not sure about that. But to answer the other question, by the way, I stand corrected. It says the subdivider, the plans must meet the county road specifications. So any proposed subdivision goes
Right.
to Road and Bridge to make
Road and
sure.
Right.
So like site, and everything else you're talking about, that's all covered by your regs. But here's is the part, and this is different than what I was thinking. Authorized access to subdivision lots is required by either public or private roads. So
Right.
it,
Which they've met that, because they have that public road, Muirfield Drive.
well, the public road is, that's a private road in the sense, I guess it's
Muirfield.
it's dedicated to the public, but I'm reading this as public road to mean the county road as well. It's not saying that you can only access it from within the subdivision. At least these regs don't make that
Right.
clear.
And to me, I just keep thinking that's geared toward the subdivider, not to
Well,
put
it
on
is.
an individual person who's already bought a piece of property. They
It
can't.
is, but the subdivider, or the property owner, to the extent that he buys it subject to what the subdivider was, or the developer was.
Actually, it is a can of worms, because by that policy and by Gary's reg there, he could put it in. We can't stop him from doing it if he wanted
I'm gonna
to.
have to get a permit first, but we should have that. And I'm not sure, does the zoning resolution go into more detail about permits for getting driveways?
On our application, it probably does, because on our application to build a dwelling, we say if you're coming off a county road with your driveway, we want to see the road and bridge permit.
Right, and if he conforms to the blind curve rule, or other requirements you have, it's got to be a certain height and all that. You can't stop him from doing it. I don't think,
Well,
and we can't enforce it.
it's not enforceable, but
Well, that's the point.
Well,
so in other words, we're just anybody that's watching in on this commissioners meeting, they can go out and do whatever
Well,
they
sure,
want.
because it's a free county right now. We haven't constrained anybody with any other
with a
reg.
written policy or
That's right.
regulation.
Your big issue is, and mine too, is cost to do it. We got to get it covered, and it means if we're going to have a policy, you got to be able to enforce cleaning them or not, or having the landowner clean them for whatever the reason is. You can't just willy-nilly make stuff up because you don't like
Well,
Doing the work.
it wasn't, there was a lot of, it wasn't willy-nilly.
I don't mean that from your point of view. I'm talking about, what are you going to use to stop him from applying for that?
Well, legally, we can't. We can't use anything. We don't have anything that's enforceable. And fortunately, any homeowner that's applied for this permit has respected the two-page document right there and never questioned why. Or well, I mean, they have questioned why not, but they didn't go against the grain and just do anything they wanted to regardless. Right. Fortunately,
he's not either.
Well, I know, I realize that, but
get it. And I happen to agree with the safety piece of this. That's what got me into worrying about it first place. And I'll tell you what, if his house was burning, or the barn was, and they got to go around and get in that same entrance in that little entryway with the fire trucks and everybody else, his place is burned up.
Well, I just don't buy that argument either, because that subdivision was platted. It would have never been platted if that was not an unsafe.
Where does it say in the subdivision?
And honestly,
that says
I think that the fire engines are going to have a better chance of coming from the top going down versus coming from the bottom going up if we have adverse weather conditions where they're going to spin out and things of that nature. So I mean, there's an argument.
Sure, there is.
All over the place.
Can I say something too? Is time has made us. I don't want to say smarter, but we have. Over time, we've gotten smarter with our subdivisions. So you can't use that old subdivision because we've gotten a heck of a lot smarter on these subdivisions than what used to be done.
Yeah.
I also think that, just speaking from experience, I had a gentleman that took me to court because he swore he was in a different zone. And he said, I want to see the policies and stuff. I want to see the map and stuff. So that took a couple months to get. But if I couldn't produce a policy stating what I was trying to enforce, I was dead in the water. And signing that application for that culvert does not have no teeth in it. It doesn't even say a penalty.
I think people just assume we have a policy.
And it doesn't say culvert. We're talking about a driveway.
Yeah. I think people just, once again, I think they assume we have a policy, so they abide by Road and Bridge's decision on where and why. So back to this, I mean, at least for the time being, this is all we've got. So I think that in order to stay consistent, we ought to just go ahead and abide by this, and in the meantime, I'll look into developing a policy. And I know, Bill, you don't agree with that.
I'm just.
But what else are we going to do at this point in time?
Well, I move that we disallow Mr. Bistrick to install a culvert based on the third bullet point that says properties accessible from a subdivision road must be accessed from the subdivision road unless unusual circumstances exist. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to disallow a culvert to be installed, which in essence creates another driveway, right?
Mm-hmm.
For Mr. Bistrick on lot number 35, Muirfield Drive. Discussion?
Okay, I'd just like to comment that I seconded so that we could have the discussion. I've listened to this. This is the second meeting in a row we've discussed this. Without a true policy, I think a person should have access to their road. They're going to pay for the cost of doing it, cost of maintaining it, and it meets the specifications for safety that Road and Bridge has. I don't have a problem with it putting in a driveway. That's my personal.
I honestly don't either, Jay. I agree with him wholeheartedly, but being as we've got this in place and this is all we've got, I'm going to refer back to it. And I don't know what else to do.
I understand what you're saying.
I do too, but I happen to agree with Jay. We can't enforce it.
Well, I agree too. We can't enforce it.
And it is logical, and I don't have a problem. He was one to put in 3 of them. We couldn't stop them doing that, but we would have a bigger problem. We need a policy, and so that's my position.
Okay. Go ahead, sir. We're still in debate. No, we're good.
I was going to say, I think I'm going to vote probably to not allow until such time as a policy is established. And then what I'd really like to do is just open the question back up with this gentleman. I don't know him. I saw the maps. I did not go out and drive it, but I do know exactly where that property is. I would like to see a policy in place that is approved. I thought it should be approved by the planning and zoning, but if it's not, that's fine. It could be approved by the commissioners for the road and bridge. I don't have an issue with it. Let's get a policy, and then we could adhere, you will adhere to it. And I would feel much more comfortable if we have a policy and we follow a policy.
Yeah, I agree doing that, having a policy. However, we just made a statement a while ago that said we can't make anything retroactive, so anybody, in my view, it can be retroactive.
If we establish a policy, this gentleman comes forward and says, I would like to do this, and it's in the policy, I'm going to go, why is he even coming to me? If he meets the policy, go do it. And we always have the right for exceptions. I agree with that completely. That's why we have, all the time, we have exceptions occasionally that come up, and we agree to them when it makes sense to do that. I just can't approve this, I don't think, without a policy. And I don't know, I'm very torn on this.
I got a question for Commissioner Kanda. Are you under the employ of Mr. Bistrick?
No.
Okay.
But I don't have a dog. I am doing some work for him
But you're not getting paid for it?
Not for this. Not for the road. No, I've got
my question was very straightforward. Are you under the employ of Mr. Bistrick?
For the septic system.
Okay. Do you perceive any conflict of interest in voting on this motion?
No, I don't. But I don't have a dog in the fight either way. To me, the bigger issue is the policy.
Which we're not talking about the policy.
I don't mind.
Getting ready to vote on the motion.
I don't mind abstaining from it personally.
Well, I'm just asking.
My
personal decision.
Yeah, that's right.
Stay or not. We can't ask you
to
abstain.
Further discussion?
I feel better keeping it on the up and up here if you have an issue with it. He did not ask me to go to battle for him on this.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote on the motion, which is to disallow Mr. Bistrick, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, to disallow him for installing a driveway off of Copper Gulch Road onto his property at 35 Nearfield Road. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
I'll abstain.
And one abstain for the record. Mr. Kanda abstained. Motion carries to disallow.
I would like to say, just as a caveat, let's work up a policy, let's get it approved by the board, and then depending on what that policy says, if the gentleman would like to reapply, I would certainly welcome, assuming the policy gives him the authority, I'd certainly welcome him to come back and do that.
Just for the record, would you allow anybody else in the whole world to come back and ask for more culverts?
Of course.
Okay.
We can allow anybody to
That's
ask
right.
for it.
That makes sense.
I'm just saying we were not wanting to do it retroactively before. I just wanted to make sure it was.
And
how
then
we
just
have to-
as long as we get a policy written up.
Do you have other written policies for things? I mean, just besides this, do you have other policies?
Yeah, we do. We have a utility cut policy for these.
Maybe they should all be formally approved then as policies, but you can't impose a fine through a policy. You know, there'd have to be an ordinance or in the zoning resolution for a fine. But if, you know, the permit they get from you is a contract, and if they violate it, we could take them to court and make them take it out or correct the problem. We can't fine them, but we can
Because it says that we're going to charge them $50 if they do this process without a permit. Is that even legal? Really?
Was it just 50?
You know, back to we could chase this can down the road. Can we triple the fine on somebody because they did something?
Yes, because it's in a policy of the county.
Well, it's in the zoning, it's not a policy, it's a
But if you
residential.
did his policy, you could take the penalty
Yeah,
out
it's
of our
$50 if they
zoning
proceed.
and use it
before
for
they
his
get the
penalty.
permit. Oops, sorry, didn't know they were stapled.
I'm not sure how that works.
$100 a day, remember that one, we used it on the.
Yeah, but I mean, this would have to be part of the zoning resolution, then, not just a separate policy.
That's the same thing.
Torn on this. I mean, this.
Oh, wow,
this is
I'm
terrible.
struggling
Man wants
myself,
to put a
but-
driveway in. I got a real problem telling them, no, you can't put a driveway in at your own cost. However, we have a precedent that's set. We'll follow the precedent until such time as we come up with a policy, and then follow whatever policy we establish.
It's actually a good thing it came up because
I
that
agree.
has to happen.
What
There's
does
a
our
lot more
zoning
people asking for
resolution
help.
say
Pardon?
about,
A lot more people.
I mean, does
be
the
asking
zoning
for help.
resolution?
Well, I mean, they can
regulate
ask, but if we have a policy
road
where they're
bridge
limited to
policies
two,
or
and,
anything?
you know, if it's basically outlined just like this, then they gotta follow it.
Always says if you're
Precedent.
coming
All the
off
people that
County
have been
Road,
turned
you have to
down
go to the
over
road
all this
bridge
time
and
because
get
the
a permit.
precedent, it would be inappropriate to say, oh, just because this guy, we should
Right.
change it now.
But
That would
doesn't
be
get a permit.
inappropriate.
I agree.
So
Do you
let's
keep
get
that
a
with your
policy
permit?
that
Have
does
you
it
ever-
right.
Find
Do you
them
have
for
everybody that's
that
been turned
through
down?
the zoning
I'd be
resolution.
curious in
Okay,
developing the
but-
policy.
We've got a
how
stack
many
of them that
acres-
high, yeah.
how
We
many
keep,
Yeah, I
acres
do
were
everything.
sometimes
involved.
charge a lot.
yeah, we keep everything
I'll
documented.
bring it up for you so you can help develop a policy. What was turned
On our
down.
checklists, we have to have that permit.
Blood sugar's getting low. Could we move on?
We're getting tired of you, Gary.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I thought we appreciate it, as Danny DeVito would say. Thank you,
If
Gary.
you want and/or need help, reach out.
Oh, yeah, we've got a commissioners meeting coming up pretty soon. Well, next week I'll visit with you about it.
Yeah, let's talk about some more during that staff report. Thank you, sir.
Cool.
Appreciate
See
it.
ya.
See you later, Gary. Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is the appointment of the committee of the underfunded courthouse presentation. So I put the word appointment. I don't know how formal that has to be, but we need to make some decisions.
You need a form of
This gentleman has been
committee.
sitting here for an awful long time. Is there something that you wanted to address the board, or you
He
just
wants to
visiting?
buy the land.
He wants to talk about your last agenda item. Could you switch it around?
No, we're good. We'll stay on task. Underfunded courthouse.
No.
We've already gone through amending the agenda. That didn't happen, so. Are both of you gentlemen planning on attending?
I am.
I have every intention of being
Okay.
in Denver.
It's 21st,
And-
right? Still.
Shannon Byerly has indicated he will go. He has offered to be the spokesman.
I am
Your feelings about that?
I am perfectly fine with that.
Commissioner Kanda?
I don't have a problem with it, but we set a precedence with commissioners supporting it last time, giving the briefing. That was pretty impactful, I thought.
Yeah, well, it's our grant.
It's our grant.
Yeah. Do you feel anybody else needs to be there?
Like who?
Well, I would suggest Lisa Rowe, but I happen to know she's flying out of Denver that day. So,
Well,
Judge Hunter, we could ask her.
well, you know, guys, we're in it now. They know we're there. We know they know our case pretty well. We probably don't need as big a crowd there to make an impact. I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. We don't need to overwhelm them with numbers. They know we're coming. They know what we're after. My only idea is that we maintain some level of professionalism.
Right.
I think sending one person, we've seen it, right? When we were there, one person asking for $250,000 or $1.5 million.
They even asked for a lot.
We even sat there and went, why would he be here by himself asking for $1.5 million?
Knew he didn't
So I
have
want to strike a
snowball's
balance
chance.
if we can, and maybe three's the balance. I don't know. That's why I put it on here so we can talk about it.
My opinion would be if the sheriff and the three of us show up,
No.
what more could you possibly ask for?
Two of you, I will not.
Okay, two of us.
You're
show up.
abstaining.
Well, yeah, I'm no part of this process, yeah, by default. So it would be you three.
Well, I want to go just because I care enough about getting the grant
Well, so do
that
I.
I would like to just stand there and go, I'm a commissioner, I drove from Custer County up here just to show you how much I support this and appreciate what you're about to do, hopefully. That's the only reason I would go, to lend support. I have nothing to add other than my pretty face.
And,
Well, that'll swing the day
yeah, I
right
mean,
there.
That'll do it right there, right?
Most cases, I think it does.
and lend support, I mean, I want us, obviously it's not me, but it's our grant, right? It's not we're supporting somebody else's grant. We gotta go there and say, we want you to approve our grant. It's us three
That's
commissioners.
why I'm going there.
Right. Yeah, I don't wanna, I mean, we've gone and supported other people's efforts. This is our own effort. That's just what I wanna reinforce, that this
So
is our grant.
do you want me or Jay to speak? Do you think that'd be better?
I don't have a feeling one way or another. No, I don't. Shannon said he would
So I think we,
be the spokesperson if he wanted.
probably, I think we actually, the way it'll probably work, we all three gonna have a comment.
We sat up in the front last time. I don't remember saying anything except hello when they were introduced. I introduced myself. Couldn't say another word. But my presence as a commissioner, caring enough to go up there to sit at the meeting,
Nobody's arguing.
made a loud statement.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And we can get a couple charts together, and I think the three of us can, have it placed.
I mean, they're gonna want a spokesperson. So,
Why would not the sheriff has taken the lead on this project for the counties, on the county's behalf? He has been the lead on this. He's the perfect
I
person.
think he's fine,
okay.
and we'll help him.
I don't think we need to ask Judge Hunter to drive all the way to Denver.
I don't think so at all.
She was there before. They saw that. They're not gonna forget that.
That's right. The precedent's been set, the wheels are in motion. They've already paid us money to go do this, and we need more money.
Keep the project moving
Right.
forward.
So it's not a
So,
big deal.
from my perspective, I would think our main pitch is to tell them why we want the 35,000.
Correct.
And
that's
a
what
couple,
Shannon would
3,
do.
4 slides to support that. I don't know.
I agree. It doesn't need to be anything particularly long.
All right, I will follow up, or actually, you know what? I need to get out of it. So, would one of you take the lead to follow up with Shannon Byerly, make arrangements for travel, all of that?
I gotta go see him.
Oh, you.
Okay.
I'll just ask him to tell him we talked about
Just
it.
assume I'll be there.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know why you couldn't all ride up together, but that's, because there's only 3. That's the other nice thing about it. If there were 6 of us, it'd be different, but,
Yeah, we can't, last time we couldn't.
yeah, I'm going up the night before, so.
Are you going to be there for this, or are you going to do so? Oh,
No, I'm
you're
on
part
the
of
commission, correct?
He's gonna listen and he's gonna abstain.
Yeah.
How many on the commission?
I'm gonna say 10.
Will they
I've
vote
got
right?
that.
Will they vote right then?
No.
That's,
No, they'll hear the presentation. After they hear all the presentations, then they meet and make decisions about their recommendations to the court administrator. They're not, this commission doesn't decide. This
Just
commission makes recommendations to the court administrator, yes. And then he makes that final decision.
Can either agree or not.
Is this on the 21st?
21st.
Yes, 21st.
What time?
Well, it starts at 8:30, but.
Oh, that's right. We
that's
don't know
the-
where we're on the agenda.
So if Byron's gonna take the lead, he needs to communicate with them and indicate a time. I'd gotten an email, of course, but I just responded and said I would assume Custer County would prefer late morning, early afternoon
Right, and we did that
because
last
of
time.
travel constraints. That's all I told them. So, okay, very good. Anything else, gentlemen, on that? We will move on then. Consideration of the county property in San Isabel. Miss Jackie, you want to take the lead? Bring your guest up, whatever you'd like to do.
Mr. Eeks, why don't you sit in the front and show them what you have? Did you bring pictures?
I did. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
What's your name?
Michael Eeks.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Pleasure to meet you guys. And you, Angel.
Thank you.
I have a piece of property over in in San Isabel, and it's actually basically the first property. If you drove over the bridge coming up from Rye, I'm on the right-hand side. Well, apparently when they expanded the road from Old San Isabel Road, they ate up a lot of this property, and I own this
Correct.
piece here, and there's 3 that I'm wanting to.
Wait a minute, let me see.
We've got that.
Oh, you got, okay, good. And there's 3 that I want to purchase. There's not much to them. The grade going down to them would be prohibitive. You could not,
Right.
because the highway is raised up quite a bit there. The only value that I see in the property is to add it to my own, and if my kids want to build a swing down there or pitch a tent down there or something, that I'm not encroaching on county ground.
That's pretty steep in there.
Oh, it's real steep, you bet. And I suppose even if somebody else owned it, they'd have to come across. They'd have to come across my property to get to it anyway.
Which ones are yours?
What's that,
Where's
sir?
yours?
I'm here, and these are.
Yellow is yours.
Yes, and then the 1, 2, 3. Okay. You can see that the road comes right across, and then it's real
Do you
deep.
know what the assessed value is on these pieces of property? What the assessors put it? I mean, or do they? It's county. Is it definitely county property? Is that how it's shown?
Yes, county property.
Yeah.
Okay. So there probably isn't
The
assessed
value.
value.
I'm not sure what value it holds. I mean, obviously it has a value to me in my mind, and then I would think that also putting it on the rolls and collecting taxes would be advantageous to the county as well.
Sounds like right now it's landlocked the way it's.
Let me see that piece of property.
Is it landlocked? What's that?
I don't have the map in front of me.
Well,
It
I guess
sorta
depends
is,
on what you
isn't it?
mean by landlocked.
You can walk, you can fall off a highway
Well,
at
we don't
165.
no access to it right now.
Right here is
Off of the highway there is.
You can
There
fall
is.
right off the highway.
Right
onto
here
it.
is Mr. Compton. That's who owns that lot right there. It's a very small lot. These are all small lots, like Lake Dewey's. They're like 50 by 100 or something like that. And as you notice, the state highway comes down here and it cut off the front part of these lots.
That's small.
Mr. Compton, and it's my fault, did not notice that Mr. Compton was on the other side. So putting that in the mix of this thing, does Mr. Compton have anything on his property?
No, it's
Because
it's got some trees.
Because if you look at this property, if you couldn't walk down it,
No,
because you would start running, and
Right.
then at the bottom is the river.
Right.
The one thing that Mr. Eakes did say, that if you could come to a conclusion on him purchasing it and a price, then my recommendation was that he had to vacate for $50 all the interior lot lines, including his own, because we
You're
want
okay
this
with
to
that?
be one big
Big
piece.
lot.
Now, I want you to take into consideration that this is a platted, San Isabel was platted years ago, so individually they're all allowed a well, but if you would sell this, then whoever you sell it to has to vacate those lot lines so they can only have one well. Thank you.
So each one of those lots has a well permit, able to.
They
drill
could,
right
because
now?
it's pre-zoning, San Isabel.
Okay.
Pre-Senate Bill 35, 1972.
Are you okay vacating it if you bought these lots? Would you vacate the lot lines? and make it
Absolutely.
all one pro?
Sure.
So you
What
intend
price
to build
did
a
you-
house on it or something?
No,
sometime? What
no.
are
In
you
fact,
gonna do?
I don't know that you could.
Right.
To be honest with you, I just
wanna
I don't
have
want
it.
to be encroaching on somebody's land if I decided to make a little picnic area there or something like that. That's about what it's good for. There's
Is
really
that what
not
your
much.
neighbor's doing with his?
There's not much flat land there. It's just mostly a
What did you,
good place to put a tree stand. Maybe I don't, I mean,
Right.
that kind of thing. But
what, you said you had a number in mind. What were you thinking was a reasonable price for those
Well,
three lots?
and
No.
may I interrupt, sir?
I'm sorry.
With all due respect, I want to be careful here. And I'll tell you why. So, you just set in through this policy discussion, so I know you'll appreciate where we're coming from. It has been the procedure of the county since I've been a commissioner, in order to sell a piece of property that the county owns, that we notify all of the adjoining landowners. If someone else were to indicate an interest in buying this is why I didn't want to talk about money yet, then I believe we do, then we would accept sealed bids.
Oh,
That's why I didn't want to have you toss out a number, because if it ends up that we do need to accept sealed bids, that would put you at an unfair disadvantage if you were to give us a number today. Does that make sense?
In fact, isn't that what we've done in the past? We've actually made sure that people that adjoin county land had an equal opportunity to bid on it.
Well,
It's a policy.
yeah.
Is that a policy? That is a policy.
So that's why I interrupted you. I wanted to explain that. And secondly, and obviously, I think that was part of the conversation we need to have today, is that that we need to kind of follow our process of notifying the adjoining landowners.
So is this an adjoining landowner here too?
There's 2 adjoining landowners.
Yeah. Well,
Compton.
And Mr. East.
what's this down in here?
Sorry, I was
Is this
just there.
private ground?
That's Mr. East's.
that's a
Whole
different
place.
property.
Oh, it is. Okay, gotcha. Good.
But you own it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. So that clarifies it. So there is only one other guy that borders it.
And if we truly follow policy, I'm going to maintain that's probably not correct. And I look back to Miss Jackie, because we've gone through this within the last 8 months, and we actually treated a landowner across the highway as an adjoining landowner. Pretty sure
Yes, we did, but let's go back to across the highway. We're not gonna find anybody across the highway.
Well, okay, hold on. Let me look this back up, because I lost my...
Yeah, you're right in the middle of
And-
the highway there.
As a side note, while I'm doing this,
Mr. Trout.
Mr. Eakes, in my opinion, has the dubious distinction of being the southernmost landowner in our county. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I
Yeah, I
am.
thought so. Yeah,
Oh, is that cool?
yeah. It's like being the southernmost part of the U.S.
Down south. Let's go down south to Eakes's place.
Oh,
Take
come
in the sun.
on.
You're gonna have to put a sign on your driveway.
Yeah.
Southernmost.
Might make a buck.
People stop to take
Landholder
their
and-
pictures there. It's like
Exactly.
when they cross state lines.
You are in the county line.
County line.
You could put up a little booth.
Okay.
You ever been in the courthouse in all that time? You've been the southernmost for one of these meetings? You have?
I'm sorry, what?
You ever been here for one of these meetings and all the time you've been the southernmost?
I've been in the courthouse, but
Yeah, not the commissioner.
in fact, I was pretty nervous about this.
Well,
But
I
right
hope you-
across is that hill. Then you hit the bridge. So
Well, the land belongs to somebody.
Nancy,
behind the lake.
Terry Nance,
Terry Nance. I don't.
and Susan Barton, and Thomas Stanton.
In Pueblo County?
But see, they don't adjoin it like we would think adjoining
I
it.
know that. I agree with you 100%. I'm
So
just
we don't-
saying. I don't like living in the world of precedents. I hate it, actually.
I know, but I figured I scored today.
But we have adjoining landowners based on our history.
We got adjoining landowners based on our zoning regs and our history. I agree.
Okay.
So the letters will go out, and
Well-
Mr. Eakes will get one.
I guess I defer to council here
Well, I would
about
certainly-
across the highway.
Did you see it, Clint?
Show me, let me,
Okay,
because
here.
I
They're very
Look at
Pretty
this.
remote.
So,
Okay, show me where we're at.
so it's these red ones, but I want you to look at the state highway.
Can't imagine
Cut
wanting
them
to
off. So
have a little
these
picnic
are
spot where they
small
gotta
lots
sprint
that
across the
I like to
highway.
do, so if
No, and that's not the point.
No, nobody from across there is going to want it, but you got your rules, you got your
Sure,
rules,
you
right?
sure put it
All
out
I'm
there.
about is trying to
it's
honoring
He's saying there's
the
3
process and the rules. That's it. Personally, I will support this,
Isn't
but
that underneath the lake?
Guys,
got to go through the.
absolutely.
Gotta go through
Where's the
process.
bridge?
So-
Oops.
He's right here. Yeah, the bridge is right there.
The reason this property is on such a slant is because as they built the dam and the highway coming around there,
Is that all filled there?
it's on a big grade. I mean,
Yeah.
What are you looking at when you say that some people owns property? Because I want you to keep in mind also that the county has some property, but it's really not on the ground. It's underneath the lake.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this being an adjoining
This, I
landowner.
mean, this is showing as a parcel that JD's got. And so I think to err on the side of caution, you should go ahead and notify. I can't imagine why they have
Let
any
me
interest
see
in it.
what you're looking at, please.
Right there. I don't know what else to do. Right there where that cursor's at.
Okay, where's the property we want to sell?
Right there.
Yep.
I can't run this mouse very
Oh,
well
I see.
upside down. I only bring this up, Jackie, because of our previous
We gotta
notification.
notify
Got to notify her.
those people plus a little bit down the.
In Compton.
Well,
Right
and I'm
there.
assuming the state doesn't own the, I mean, the state has a right of way there, so the properties are adjacent. Because they
Right.
come in the middle of the state highway.
I see Compton and the one across the state highway, Jackie, is the only two. Would you agree
And
with
Mr.
that?
Eakes. We'll all get a letter asking for a bid.
Does Compton just own that one lot, or does he own?
He owns, well, just the one.
Okay.
Now, I know you'll think I'm being antagonistic, but I don't remember. So we send out a letter asking for bids or send out a letter informing adjoining landowners that somebody wants to buy that property? I can't remember how we did that.
We asked for bids.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, I can pull the letter up. I've got it.
Yeah,
I
we
just,
asked
did it
for
twice,
bids.
actually.
And then actually, we come up with a price,
Well, a minimum,
a minimum.
but that was based on the assessed value. We had something to go on. Here, there's no assessed value.
But we could look at the other lots, we just have to keep in mind that these aren't full.
How did you get your lot
Right.
in the first place?
right.
Pardon?
How did you get this lot? Was that one county lot?
Yes.
That was somebody else?
As I said, I have this
Yeah,
in
I know.
here,
Right.
and
Did somebody else already
yes,
own that one?
Max Chartrand had an adjoining property over here, and Max had built and encroached on my property, built too close to the damn property line. So you can see how this property bells out here a little bit. I had to, he found the owner to this property and bought it.
Oh, I see. Then he gave that to you for
Yeah.
compensation.
Do you remember the acreage of this piece, of these 3 lots?
No,
Right
we
off
were
the
trying
bat?
to figure it out
Okay.
too, because since the county, state highway
highway
messed it up,
shortens
we
them
don't
up.
have no acreage on it.
Okay, so I just looked at a letter that we had sent and basically said that the commissioners has made the decision to list a property for sale that adjoins your land. The language is, I'm not sure it's accurate, but this is the wording. Following tradition, the BOCC will offer adjoining landowners first opportunity to submit bids to purchase the property. So that's the basic premise. If you can live with that, then we can get that ball moving forward if that's what the commissioners agree. Based on all this, the commissioners need to vote on whether or not to sell this property. End of statement, correct? Because the rest of it's
That's all we wanna
subsequent to
know.
that.
I move we sell the property to, and
Offer it for sale.
offer it
Offer
for
it for
sale.
sale, okay. I'll second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to offer for sale the property. Certainly, we don't have the legals for it right now,
We'll
so I
get the
don't know
legals
how
plus-
we go about
So you
that.
could say,
Yeah,
offer
they did.
the
Okay.
property joining Mr. Eakes Eeks and the other Compton.
If you are.
Yeah, property
and then we wanna-
Between the
Eeks and Compton landowners. Is that good enough for now?
And then
We'll
we
get the
also
legals.
want to say if you are the awarded the property, you must vacate the interior property
We
lines.
can cross that
Yeah.
when we get
Okay.
to the specifics.
That'll
Put that on the
be
letter.
in the letter. Just, we gotta remember to do that, okay? Yeah, critical in this case to vacate, yeah.
Is there improvement on your property now? Is there a home or something on your property?
On
On his main.
On the
no,
one to join.
not on this little
No,
lot.
the one you're living on.
Oh yeah,
You have a home and a well there and everything?
yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't quite clear.
That's that larger property
Yes.
to the north.
yeah. It's a log cabin, and it has its own well.
Okay.
Okay. You good, Kel? Further discussion? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of offering the property between Compton and Eeks land for sale, or to sell, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, pose nay. Motion carries. Without objection, gentlemen, I'll work with Jackie just because I did the last time, and we'll work on the letter, if that's all right.
The
Which
letter
one do you
will
want
go
to be
to
involved?
the property owners across the highway too, since
Yes.
that is
All.
adjacent.
Yes,
Since
two
the property
adjacent
comes
landowners.
together in the middle of the highway. You understand?
We'll adjoin two, or we will notify 3 landowners, correct, including Mr. Eeks? Okay. Good enough, sir?
Thank you
Yeah,
for your time.
That may not have
Appreciate
been
it.
worth your time that
Thank you.
long. That's a lot of time.
Who would you want to be with us?
Sure makes my day whenever you're in.
So, Kel,
And the
you're okay
angel
with
over
getting the legals, or you don't have to do that?
No, I can get
Jackie.
Jackie.
Are you gonna hang around for just a minute? I need to talk to you about Miss McCarty. Do you know her?
Of course she knows.
McCarthy.
Is there a good place in town for lunch?
Yes, couple, 2 or 3.
What would you suggest?
Well, you'll have to ask
Wait a minute,
somebody
you're
other than the
commissioner.
city county commissioner.
Yeah, this is on
What do you want?
lunch.
Jackie can
the
tell
official
you.
restaurant endorsed by the county.
That's
commission.
right, that's right. And maybe for the right amount of money, we can make that arrangement.
Yeah, we could, sir, endorse
Yeah.
that.
Any other public comment? Hearing none from Miss Jackie, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second. It's been moved and second to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Opposed nay. Motion carries.